in a city that never sleeps. A lone guitarist makes his leaps. Fingers dance, strings sing a tale of a dream that feels so frail. Echoes fill the silent night. A lost love, a heart so tight. But in this cold, hard world, hope's just a fleeting word. Oh, trees whisper, oh, trees sigh. In the darkness they take flight. Heartbreak echoes, lonely cry. In the cold, hard light, guitar soars through the stormy skies. A melody that pierces the eyes. Love's a memory, a distant dream. In this world it seems. Fingers glide in the fading light. A final note, a last good night. Lost in the shadows, lost in time. Dreams are all we find. Oh, dreams whisper, oh, dreams sigh. In the darkness they take flight. Heartbreak echoes, a lonely cry in the cold, hard light.
In the shadows where whispers dwell,
1.3.
slight guitar sings of love's farewell.
10-4, I just wanted to know if
Echoes of the heart once bold, now lost in the night's cold fold.
Yeah, I'll be 23 back on the
Secrets hidden deep within,
Throwdown.
tales of love that couldn't win. Promises made in moonlight's glow, now broken like a shattered show. Sorrow in the guitar's cry, resilience in the sky. Through the night we'll find our way, carrying secrets, holding on today. Memories of laughter and tears, in the silence they appear. Whispers of a time so true, when love was all we knew. Lost in the echoes of the past, wishing for what we had. In the dark we search for light, holding on to what we fight. Through the pain, through the night, we find strength in the fight. Sorrow in the guitar's cry, resilience in the sky. Through the night we'll find our way, carrying secrets,
21.
Give me a card for a parking problem.
Or you're 23.
Yes, that's 428 on truck when you're ready.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We have a interesting hearing today, and we now know that the trial is set for next Tuesday. They've completed the jury. We'll see if Kate's here. Kate, can you hear me at all? Are you?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Awesome.
If I fall asleep at the switch here, just wake me up.
No. We'll just watch you sleep like a bunch of creeps in that case.
I take those those drugs that I take to go through that procedure tend to leave me a little woozy in the morning, and then
Yeah.
I bounce back after a couple hours. But so I'm drinking
That's all right. I mean, the hearing will probably roll on uninterrupted for at least a couple hours, honestly.
If Alessi goes, everybody will feel like me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody will just be taking a nap across the country.
Exactly. We need transcripts. Alessi is made for transcripts where you can just quickly read through it. So today's motion I know is about I don't know how many, all the motions, maybe you can fill us up with some of them. We know part of them is the motion to include statements from some of Karen's media statements in the prosecution's opening statement.
Yep, I think they're litigating Garrett Wing as well.
They're still going after that, huh? All right.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of outstanding still. I don't think it was ever ruled on. So I think that is coming up. I'm trying to think if it's been a while, so I probably should have checked the docket ahead of this, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I think they have a few outstanding things. I saw some chalks, yeah, and then also they might handle sequestration today, maybe not.
Mhm.
And I think the where did they leave the consciousness of guilt? Did she leave it as sort of like if it's developed? I know that he had essentially said that he didn't plan to call it in his case in chief.
Yeah, right. So that's pretty interesting. So if it's not to be called in case in chief, that makes it lesser of a priority to discuss before the trial, right?
Right. Well, I think it would be one of those things like if it comes up, but I'm a little bit unclear right now. Sort of how, so I think that might be outstanding. That might come up. I can't think of anything else. Maybe your chat can. Maybe somebody else is a little bit more awake than I am today.
Yeah. So you might have to talk me off the ledge a little bit. I'm not panicking, but I get a little worried because I've seen in this case on both sides that the common denominator has been smart people making bad decisions, not just mistakes, but some bad decisions. Now, I'm not saying that Brennan, that applies to him, but we haven't seen him do a trial yet. And I'm just the part that worries me is I absolutely do believe that you need to include as many of these statements that Karen has made to the media. What I'm worried about is the way they will be used. I absolutely think it's a huge mistake if you in any way lead those to a jury in a way that implies that something that is open to interpretation. So, for example, this is different because it was in a hearing, but last April when Adam Lally told us that the body cam from Karen's second arrest was going to show Karen saying, you guys smashed John's head on the taillight. And then an hour later, we heard the audio and she didn't say that at all. And I mean, it's bad enough when defense lawyers talk about non-human hairs and other types of deception, but it's way worse when a prosecutor does it. And you lose credibility with the jury.
Yeah, I don't think that he was lying, to be fair. I think that what he was saying pretty much is he paraphrased it poorly and said like, well, she's talking like she was there, right? And so I wouldn't say that was a gross misrepresentation or anything, certainly not like the non-human hair or anything like that. I think it probably was. And you got to think too, this is a lot of stuff for regular, like blindsided ADA to go through. I think a lot of the time these attorneys will hear about it from somebody in their office, or with the public participation, maybe it gets emailed to the, so they're not always sitting down and actually going through this stuff themselves. I don't think that's the case with Hank Brennan. That's just the impression that I'm getting. He seems to be quite precise in his quotes. He seems to always have the videos available. He seems to know exactly what he's talking about. Like, he is personally going over it. I don't necessarily think that was the case for Lally. I think it's, it's difficult. I don't think that's going to happen, I guess, is my point. I think that it's probably pretty precise. And I think that, there's always going to be some room for interpretation listening to her statements. But if you go with a non-biased, like if you're not on one side or the other, I think everybody can at least agree that her statements are inconsistent. And in some cases, she concedes that she has met some of the elements of the crimes for which she is charged, right? So there you go. I don't see how that could really, I mean, I'm not worried at all about Hank's ability. I think the only factor here is if they were able to get a lunatic on the jury, or if, Turtle Boy is able to get a hold of them. Because, I mean, that's the unfortunate part of the background checking is, the defense was provided a list of jurors every single day and running their backgrounds. And the defense is working in tandem with Turtle Boy, who is obviously not above trying to contact, influence jurors, threaten them, publicly shame them, the whole 9 yards. So that's the only part that concerns me personally.
Yeah, I guess to what I was trying to say, though, is because the state has such compelling, overwhelming, nuts and bolts evidence, they have to always be perfectly credible with this jury.
Right.
So you want to play certain statements, but for instance, I think it's a mistake, and I think 99% of the people on this side make the mistake of thinking that some of Karen's statements, they misinterpret what she means. So when she does in these interviews and she says, well, I was wondering, could I have clipped him? She's not stupid enough to say, well, geez, at 12:30, that's what I was wondering. I just heard a slam, and I thought maybe that's not what she's saying.
That isn't bad. I mean, but the fact that she's saying it at all, again, you are admitting on camera years after the fact in some cases that your thought, and she does say it was early on, right? So, I mean, in the proximity of when this happened, right? It doesn't really matter. Do you hear crime reports on the news and think to yourself, oh my God, did I do that? And it's I think what's more damning for those statements, and I think most people, you don't need to interpret it as a straight up admission, but she's saying, hey, it crossed my mind that I could have clipped him with my car. Like, I concede that I thought that was a possibility at some point. And the Commonwealth's like, that's crazy, because once we went all over the evidence, that's exactly what we concluded that you did, Karen. You clipped him with the rear passenger side of your SUV. Like, that's the part, I think, and she's made that statement so many times, but it's so damning because it is completely corroborated by all of the evidence, right? And so what are the odds that she thinks early in the morning that she could have done exactly what a few hours later they're going to piece together they think she did,
Yeah, no, that's all reasonable the way you just said it. I just know that so many people are making this misinterpretation, and similar to when she said he didn't look dead to me. She's not talking about she's not talking about getting out of the car and looking at him at 12:32. She's talking about when they found him at 6:15. Now, I'm not saying she didn't get out of the car, and I'm not saying she didn't go back to the crime scene and look at him. Maybe she did, but she's not stupid enough to admit that. And if you don't want to tend to believe that just because you don't like someone that therefore they're saying something stupid. She's not stupid. She would never say something like that.
She did say something stupid. Again, like, I think that, like, it's that, like, weird myopic free Karen Reed thing where it's like, well, wait a minute, she's not saying that she didn't look mortally wounded at 12:30 in the morning. It doesn't it doesn't matter because, you know, you're saying, well, he didn't look mortally wounded. Now you've opened up that interpretation. Well, when are you talking about, Karen? Are you talking about in the morning when you were screaming, asking if he was dead? Like,
Yeah, but it
at
certainly
that
matters.
point, you seem to think that he was mortally wounded. Like, so, I mean, it's not like, I don't know. She's pretty stupid, I guess is my point. Like, that is objectively like a stupid thing to say just because she is like so narcissistic and full of hubris that she thinks because she couches it with like, well, I didn't think this stuff until after I found him. It's incredibly stupid to say out loud on camera multiple
But
times.
there is a Kate.
Yes.
We shouldn't pretend there's not a world of difference between saying John didn't look mortally wounded at 6:15 to saying he didn't look mortally wounded at 12:30 or at 5:05, 5:30 or something like that. There's a world of difference because those are times when she isn't supposed to have seen John. So that's what I'm saying. That it really does
But
matter.
there's
It
no
may still be.
clarification on what it is. The fact that she even says it all, because again, when you're piecing this together, going, well, what? Because you don't know. You don't know as well as I don't know what she's talking about. She never makes that clear. She doesn't. So she doesn't say, from what we've seen anyway. Maybe there's something in the uncut that's more that she was more pointed about it. But the way that it was presented on television, she simply says he didn't look mortally wounded to me, and then the journalist asked, and this would have been the moment that you dropped him off. Yeah, it would have had to have been whatever, you know. So I understand that there was probably a jump with the question and that answer, but even if you just look at, he didn't look mortally wounded to me. You don't know what time she's talking about. It could be 12:30 in the morning. It could have been 6:15. It could have been 5. She doesn't clarify
I'm
that, but
I am fine. Go ahead.
it completely flies in the face of her behavior, which some of these statements did be picked up on dash cam where she's screaming, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? If you don't think that he looked mortally wounded at 6:15 in the morning, you're probably not running around asking if he's dead, right? Because like he doesn't look mortally wounded. So it doesn't reconcile. And I think that's the problem with her statements and why they're getting brought in. And from what I understand, like in order to rebut any of this, she would have to testify.
Yeah, and I think that might be the real goal here is to try to put pressure on her. I don't think she'll take the stand, but at least that creates in the juries some kind of an expectation that, hey, you're willing to talk to the media. Why don't you talk to us? In that Dateline interview, in the original version that they aired, the reporter asked her if he looked mortally wounded, and that's why she came up with that answer. And then it gets re-edited later out of sequence, and it's a little bit different. But I'm just saying, I don't mind them playing. I think it's good to play these clips, but don't try to spin it. Be careful not to be at every point, be credible, because you don't want to, it's a super risk. You don't want to ever lose credibility with the jury. If you're the prosecutor, you don't want to, any lawyer, but definitely if you're the prosecutor, because they're going to start not only tuning you out, you risk a greater risk of jury nullification when they get angry at it. And there's no need for it because you have so much compelling evidence. So play the stuff, just be careful that it's not presented in a way that in any way, if it's open to interpretation, then leave it open for interpretation. Don't try to interpret it for the jury, which I know they would only be able to do that with the way they ask their questions, or perhaps in their closing arguments. But that's my only fear is that I went through this before last year, and I granted, obviously Hank is very different guy and can learn from Larry's mistakes. But I was for 6 months before the first trial saying, if they go up there and don't try to prove John's injuries and instead just try to debunk the conspiracy, they're going to lose. And it was driving me crazy. I was trying to shout to anybody that would listen, any source, anybody that talked to me. I was like, don't do that. It's going to be a mistake unless there is smoking gun evidence in those voicemails, which there was not. So that's my only worry is I want them to always be credible, focus on the things that the jury will focus on, which will be the physical evidence, the data, the timelines and things like that. If it's open to interpretation by even a couple of the juries, they won't have unanimity on that particular piece of evidence, and they're going to put it aside.
Maybe. I think no matter what, her statements are pretty. I think it can't be. Even her own supporters, even attorneys who commentate and have been, blindly loyal to Karen Reed's cause here, have conceded that those interviews were a freaking terrible idea, and like I don't think that could, I think that may be what sinks her, because as of right now they play all this. I don't think that Hank has to really add much to what she's saying at all. You've got one account where she says that he approaches the front door and she watches him, walk up the driveway, and then he disappears. There's another one where she says up the side door, sticks his head in. I mean, there's just so many inconsistencies in, what happened as she was dropping him off, why they were fighting, when they were fighting, whether they were fighting at all. Everything with her is so inconsistent. And then, the consistencies that come up are like when she says, to 4 different people even, because I think Turtle Boy too, but I just thought that I had clipped him, and it's like, holy shit, that's exactly what the Commonwealth thinks too. What are the odds, Karen?
Yeah.
Like
what do you think of the whole OJ thing? That thing seemed really telling to me.
I think oh my God, listen, I can't even. I am so upset with Sue O'Connell in that, because I feel like she is a charlatan. But and tell me if I'm like playing too much into this, but obviously I'm very focused on sort of how I believe this is sort of like an astroturfing marketing, like really Machiavellian thing, right? So I noticed that the first thing that happens is there's reports that come back that there are Black people on the jury, people of color, people who are not white. And so that starts it. Then you've got Turtle Boy going, oh my God, well, if Karen Reed was Black, like, oh, okay. Then you've got Karen Reed, sympathizing with OJ. And then right behind that, you've got Sue O'Connell then writing this moronic, I'm going to call it a blog, opinion piece really is what it was. Well, Free Karen Reed and Black Lives Matter are pretty much, you guys got a lot in common. Maybe you guys should think about that. Like, it just seems to me to be the most shameless, tone deaf race baiting I've ever seen. And it's gross.
So you think that statement about OJ was just because there might be 1 or 2 Black jurors on the jury, and she's hoping they'll hear that?
I really do, because of the context here, right? Like and if you go back to even the Free Karen Reed logo, they bit that off BLM, right? Which whatever, but you are the complete opposite. The only thing that Free Karen Reed and BLM have in common really is the questions about the financial propriety of the movements, honestly. Yeah. I mean, Karen Reed is the problem that BLM purports to want to solve, pretty much, right? As far as privilege and profiling. And I mean, it's just crazy to me, but to me, it feels sort of like the Asian house thing, right? Like, let's bring this up because there's Asian people on the jury. Now they're really trying to lean into all Black people must hate the police, which is not accurate. But I mean, even the ones that do generally have a very different reason than entitled, white, wealthy Karen Reed. I'm just going to stop myself now because I stewed on this for 3 days because I really have strong feelings about inequity, right? Racial, socioeconomic, and I think that it's really glaring in the justice system. I don't take away from that at all, right? There's a reason that the Menendez brothers brutally murdered their parents, lied about it, later admitted to it, financially benefited from it, and now they're up for resentencing, and there are innocent people who are not as wealthy and high profile that will just die in prison rather. But anyway, so it bothers me a lot to see Karen Reed, who is essentially the face of the establishment right now, right? The establishment, the privileged, the wealthy, the top percent here, try to lob herself on to actual injustice that happens. That she benefits from the way the system is. That's all. I'm done ranting.
So I like your thought. I hadn't thought of that on trying to influence the racial aspect of it. So my thought of it was that, so what is OJ? OJ is a guy that pretty much everybody understands did it, but that a lot of people believe was justified in the acquittal because of police corruption. So for instance, back at the time, a lot of people thought, well, OJ did it and Mark Furman planted the glove, so you have to send them a message. And I feel like this is possibly an indication that Karen now knows that the evidence against her, and especially it sounds like this aperture has really put together a powerful presentation that terrifies them. And they're now sending the jury a different message. They don't want these people to say there was a conspiracy. They want to say this was just a really, really terrible investigation, and you have to send people a message that even if you think I did it, you must acquit just because of this level of police misogyny and corruption and blah blah blah. So they're trying to get some jurors to nullify. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that no matter what, yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. As far as the I mean, I think it's probable. I think that again, I always operate off the assumption that Nick Rocco works off a script on court TV, and I don't mean they're literally like writing out for him, like you're going to say this, this, and this, but like I just noticed that the narrative always turns to one direction in tandem with everybody, right? Like all of a sudden, like it's like a Greek chorus and they all start saying the same thing. And that, I'm sorry, but it's a fair inference to make that there is a level of coordination occurring there. So I noticed when you were on with Nick Rocco last night that all of a sudden it was like, I think he's really going to hammer into reasonable doubt. Reasonable. And if you have a doubt, then it's reasonable and you should. And this investigation was just so bad. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's where they're going.
Right. That's right. And that was, she articulated that even in the Vanity Fair article. She said, I think OJ, I'm not saying he didn't do it, but now based on my view of it now, that she should have been acquitted because of the investigation. And that's what she wants here. She wants people to say, well, maybe I did it, but this was still a fucked up investigation. So we need to send the public a message that it's not, that won't be tolerated. So that's a whole different thing from saying John was killed in the house, It feels like maybe they're just trying to hedge their bets too.
Well, I'm sure that I feel like they're pretty married to the conspiracy at this point. I'm sure that Karen would love a divorce, but like I think it's gone too far now, right? So like at this point, I think they have to still attempt that. I think that's not going to move the needle at all. Definitely not in her direction. That's the other thing too. Is like she said on camera, it's either me or Jen McCabe, right? Like
I know. Yeah.
I don't know, man. She's a dumb bitch. Sorry. Matt's here. He'll agree with me.
It's not that she's dumb. And good morning, Matt. I think it's she can't control certain impulses. She's got a defective brain. There are just certain things she can't control. I don't know. Does that make sense, Matt? Or
yeah, she's psychopathic. I mean, I think so. She definitely has some issue. She definitely has some personality disorder. I think that's as clear as day. Whether it's narcissism, psychopathy, like there's something there because this is not normal behavior. She has no remorse. A normal person would feel guilty about blaming innocent people, 17-year-old kids. She doesn't care. And her family doesn't seem to care either. So like they're a family of goblins. Like they are a disgusting family that has connections in Massachusetts, that educated a bunch of people in Massachusetts and has those connections. And they are the epitome of privilege.
Let's see. I'm going to try to get this on channel 5. I'm going to switch over to channel 5. Go ahead, Kate.
I think that she gets more points for intelligence than she's necessarily like owed or entitled to in this context, because like I think she just runs her defense like it's a business, right? Like she's using like a lot of standard like what's the word I'm looking for, like tactics that you would use if you were like lobbying or like trying to like get a startup going or something with like I am convinced at this point that like astroturfing, I know you can never prove it 100%, but like I think it's there. And I think that like she made some shrewd decisions around like the self-promotion, but like at a gigantic cost, because I'm like some of the shit that's come out of her mouth, right? Like I know people that haven't graduated from high school that would know not to do that.
Oh, and to be sure, I am not ever implying that she's some kind of Machiavellian genius that has orchestrated this whole thing. No, she exploits opportunities as they develop, but she didn't pre-plan this. And there's too many examples of things that they didn't think through very well. Like it took them over a year to figure out that they wanted to say that the taillight was cracked when it left the house that day. And because they hadn't figured that out, she goes and interviews with Gretchen Voss and vividly describes pulling pieces out of it. That was a mistake. They didn't understand their own theory, even at that early stage, or even just the few months ago when they had the fundraiser. And they don't invite those people that have been out there protesting for her rain and shine for over a year. And now those people are gone. That's just an unforced error. So no, she's no genius, and nobody on that team is, and very few people in life are, but she's no idiot either. So if she does something that is now, if there are impulse controls, that's different. But no, she's not an idiot. She's definitely not an idiot. You see someone do something stupid. I'm sure I've done something stupid every day. And
that consistently? Do you just wake up every day like, I'm going to do something stupid on a national scale right now? I've never done that.
I'm just saying that if you capture someone in an isolated moment doing something stupid, it's to then conclude that they're an idiot is not really the best way to get an accurate picture of what they are. I think she's an intelligent person, but she is very self-absorbed. And she's now mythologizing herself, bought into a lot of bullshit about herself. But most importantly, she has this impulse control issue. So she will do or say something stupid in the moment because she can't control those impulses.
I think we should put this to a poll.
I just think she's a 44-year-old woman that can't keep her lies straight. I mean, I think that if you look at other murder cases, even like the Menendez brothers, they were 18 years old, 21 years old. Their story hasn't changed. Like her story changes with the wind. It's like unbelievable. And like, not to say that I think the Menendez brothers are lying or telling the truth. I think that they had a defense attorney that, tied in everything into a defense. I think there's some truth to everything. But I just think you don't even have to be that intelligent to keep your lies straight. Like you can be a young kid and keep your lies straight. She is whacked. Like she is completely whacked out and not like living in the reality.
Okay, I'm going to switch to Court TV since they have fan. It's always comforting to have the fan back.
Ugh, that stupid fan. What motions are they hearing today? So did they ever rule on Garrett Wing if he's going to be able to testify? Is that one of the ones that they're doing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate thinks it's going to be, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I can go back and look by the time that I pull up.
I enjoyed your Lucky video, Matt. I hope you don't mind. I showed the audience your Lucky video the other day.
Oh yeah, Lucky. I mean, Lucky doesn't remember anything. Like when you go and look at that, like he has no idea what happened that night. And they fed it to him because he's on dash cam in a different spot than he said he was. So it's like,
yeah.
And I think that's what her whole defense is.
I remember seeing that plow when they showed that, and I was like, is that Lucky? I don't know. Is there a way to know? Because they did have auxiliary plowers in at that time. But I don't know if those I don't know. What do you think, Kate? Go ahead.
That's the thing, is like they've already boxed themselves into the only person that was ever on or near Fairview in a plow that night, Higgins notwithstanding, with Lucky Loughran. Like they lied about, by the yard. It was just him. So like they boxed themselves into that for all intents and purposes. That's Lucky. It probably is, to be fair, but I'm saying like they didn't leave much room for doubt on the defense side of things. So taking them at their word, that was Lucky.
Yeah, and Lucky says he plowed at 5:30, like immediately before. It would have been while they were at the body or immediately before. And the road was not like freshly plowed, like he just drove down it. So I mean, he just made that up.
Someone named Rocky says Kevin just wants to defend Karen. You must be new around here, Rocky.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't think that not exactly a defense to be like, no, I don't think that she's stupid. I think that she's a psycho.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stupid's more of an excuse, right? So we won't mention any names, but actually, I watched this morning. The lawyer did his mock defense statements. Have you guys seen that?
No.
I
Mm-mm.
don't watch a lot of lawyer, but I mean, he is a pretty smart lawyer and he's grifting to a degree, but he does not completely. At least he's not like Melanie Little. He does try to give you, and us not being lawyers, it is useful to get some insight into some of those things. So he did mock opening defense statements, and I was stunned by. I was not impressed. I don't know. I wasn't. I was not impressed at all. But
What was he talking about? Just like the Bowden defense, like you can't convict because there's reasonable doubt. Like I just feel like that's all that's left.
Yeah, I think he did Bowden without obviously using the word Bowden, but that kind of thing about the police and stuff like that. But it was just every aspect of it that was poorly written, poorly articulated, scattered and random. I just didn't feel like it was a way that you would want to address a jury. For me, I did a mock one myself the other day, but the mock that I did would have been to go back to the first trial. What Yannetti should have said was because I don't really know what evidence that they're looking at now, so it's kind of hard to know exactly how we don't know what the new chip off data was and stuff like that. But I believe that they should have done close to what they did last time, but a key change, instead of saying that my client was framed, say something smells fishy, and then you paint the image of a framing without ever using the word framing. And the reason I say that though, Matt, is this: when you go out there and you say my client was framed, now you create an expectation with the jury, and you have to show that. And they didn't show any of that. They didn't show at all any evidence that Karen Read was framed. So I'd rather just, my advice to a defense team is keep it vague and just keep the dumber people on the jury confused and going, but what about this and what about that, and just hope for the best on it. Hopefully you get some jury nullification. That's how I would do it. But
yeah, I think that's our only hope is the jury nullification, because the data alone convicts her. So it's like, what wiggle room do they really have if they have the data and it shows her impacting something and he stops moving in that same second? Like, there's never been a murder trial where they actually can track when it happened exactly. Like, we have so much evidence in this case compared to a normal murder trial. She left a murder weapon all over him. She woke up people and saying he was hit by a plow. Like, her state of mind is like the part that, she should have wished that she got found guilty in the last trial of involuntary manslaughter, because now they can go after her state of mind, and that's going to be murder too. And that's a lot more time in jail.
Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you? Hi, Matt. Hello, Kate.
Hey.
Good morning.
Very good. I hope you weren't waiting there long. I just looked down and just saw you. Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's fine.
All right. So, do you have any thoughts about today, Jen? We're not too sure about the motions. We know there'll be the motion about using some of Karen's media clips in the opening statement by the prosecution. I don't know if you have any thoughts on anything that's going on today.
Well, those are huge. Anything to do with the media and all of her conflicting statements and statements of culpability. This is huge, in my opinion. Remember, none of this got in before because the judge required that they have all of the statements, that it wasn't redacted or clips or partial. So I don't know if they can get past that. I hope they can. It seems like Karen says, bring it on. So she doesn't seem to be concerned about it. So perhaps her team will allow it, which will be a huge mistake. But to me, that's the biggest motion at hand.
Have you seen video clips like that used before in any of your other trials in opening statements?
I have not. But I know early on, if you recall, after the first trial, I put together an order of proof and I said, gosh, you've got to have these clips in the opening statements. This should be the first thing out of the gate. And the other thing I would play is her screaming at him, I hate you, John, or words to that effect. I would play all of that in my opening.
What would you guys do for an opening for the prosecution? Do you guys have any ideas? Matt, go ahead.
I mean, I definitely think that the clips are paramount. It totally changes the game, because in the first trial, it was just proving reasonable doubt. But now we have her saying things that you can prove are false from the evidence. So it's like, okay, why is she just making up stories? Why is she lying? Why is she saying she sat out the side of the house calling and texting when we have her call logs? And it shows that she never did that. Why would she call and ask him, like, where are you? Like, she's a liar. So like the jury's not going to accept that. So like the first time around, they didn't know that she said all these things. They didn't know the story that makes no sense. And now they're going to have it. So good luck.
Just fixing adjusting the comments so that only people that are members can leave comments. Try to reduce some of the troll activity.
Sorry, if you see trolls in your chat, it's probably from mine, and I'm not going to block them. I'm sorry. I like to give them a pasture to graze at, so like I just leave all of my stuff wide open.
So do you guys think this trial is going to be significantly shorter or more efficient than the first trial, or is it going to drag on?
I would expect it to be similar, except for the reduction of witnesses. I mean, already we don't have Colin Albert in the mix. So to me, a lot of that is going to disappear, witnesses. But then we've added so many. I'd expect it to take about the same amount of time.
They said, so Hank said that he estimated it would be 3.5 to 4 weeks, which is like half the time, or less than half the time than it was in the first trial for the prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So like Jen McCabe was on the stand for like 3 or 4 days, and do they even have, like, if they can't go after her about the Rick Green thing, maybe they still will. But I just feel like that's not going to play well on the jury. With everything that comes out, they're going to be like, this defense team is a load of crap. I mean, they're going to see that that's like, he's not a credible witness. There's, consensus in the community that didn't happen. And they're just going to like trash Jen McCabe for days. Like, that's not going to go over well. Like they had so many free passes in the first trial that are not going to fly the same way they did the first time.
Right.
Yeah, they're fucked. They've lost somebody they can blame. I don't know, if I'm Karen Reed, I want as many people as I'm allowed to blame that aren't me as possible, because that's like her entire defense hinges on trashing other people, right? Which is how usually that it's not a good defense if like you're like, no, wait, what about them, right? But like, I mean, the Rick Green thing has been thoroughly debunked. Garrett Wing is a joke. I mean, if he's allowed in, the amount of ridiculous statements that guy has made in public, right? Like, I mean, he did a whole live stream detailing like why he thinks that Karen Reed is 100% innocent and, was framed. And it doesn't have a lot to do with dog bites. It's literally everything else. Some of the stuff isn't even true. Like, he says that, Colin Albert was the ring bearer in Michael Proctor's wedding. That's not true. That's not even close to true, right? So he's really set himself up on camera as having a tremendous bias, like before he was ever asked to testify, even based on easily debunked bullshit, most of which isn't even admissible. Like, they're fucked.
Do you guys think we'll learn anything about the ring video further? We know this time, and we didn't even see if it was a prosecution or defense witness, but now someone from Ring is going to testify, or at least is on the witness list. Do you think we'll ever learn anything about where or when that was deleted from?
I doubt it. I mean, I think that the first time, like, Yuri was surprised by the document from Ring. So, I mean, I'm sure that they followed up with Ring and got a more detailed statement, but I don't think they're going to be able to say it happened at this time.
Right.
I think that they should follow up with an explanation, at least more succinct, and then also well, now actually Alan McCabe's testimony is irrelevant in terms of the Life 360. That's irrelevant now. That was another kind of just hole that nobody really went into, what happens with Life 360 when it goes offline, that it makes all those circles. And I know because I had 3 teenagers that I tracked with Life 360 and still track my college kids with it. And it's just a snafu with that program. I always thought they needed to explain that, but I think even that's going to be out because Colin's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Gina, someone said they met me at the Tahiti drunk. I don't remember meeting anybody drunk. So whatever you did, you didn't embarrass yourself. Or maybe you did after I left.
She's my friend. You did meet her.
Okay, that's what I thought. The one that's from New York. She's from New York, right?
Shamefully drunk, though, I don't think. I don't recall her being shamefully drunk. There were a lot of people there that day.
And I talked to her for like 15 minutes. She's from New York or something, right? She traveled here. Yeah. No, I remember. But no, she was not drunk.
No, she was good.
There were 1 or 2 people there that were shamefully drunk, but we're not going to say their names.
They don't get invited to stuff anymore.
No, exactly. And I guess the worst of that happened after I left. I didn't, I left pretty early, but
it was really just one. It was like one person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So do we know if they re-looked at Karen's phone? Because I just feel like that was like a hole in the first trial where they didn't really have that much information. Because I mean, just with her phone data, you could tell if she went to sleep or not. And it seemed like they didn't look at it in that detail. I know Jessica Hyde looked at John O'Keefe's phone. I know that I saw a motion with that where she was looking, because the first trial, she only looked at the How Long to Die in Cold. So they at least got another expert on John O'Keefe's phone, but I didn't see anything about Karen's phone. I know there was a motion where he wanted to get more data. I think that they barely gave them anything. I think maybe that's what the problem was, but come on.
They didn't get the metadata. And so it was never left very clear as to what data they got on it. And actually right now, so Anonymous Mass Lawyer has an article up. It's a quick one. I'm just going to go through it because it feeds into what you just said. And he or she had messaged me shortly before with some questions on the timeline, and I answered as best I could. But, some things are just unknown. So he said, yesterday we got confirmation as expected that the prosecution plans to play for the jury segments of Karen's interviews. All right. So he goes, as I noted previously, core elements of Reed's account on that night are contradicted by hard evidence, including GPS data and call records. The timeline just doesn't add up, which it doesn't. They got some information, that information about when Karen's car connected to, when her phone connected to John's GPS at around 12:36. It doesn't seem that Karen knew about that until very late, because I also remember in the summer of 2023, Turtle Boy was reporting, based on what Karen told him, that she got home at 12:41, because that's when you hear that second voicemail. Karen doesn't leave a message, but you hear her pulling into the garage. And also of note, the defense kept trying to say there was a library gap from 12:37 to 12:39, but that wouldn't really make sense if Karen was home by 12:36. So what do we know about that? You guys have any thoughts on that? Kate, do you know anything about that?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume that they have a tighter timeline now, but I mean, it's hard to, I mean, you've seen some things come through discovery that would indicate so, but yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Why the library footage thing, did she just not remember that she got, that she pulled up around 12:36, 12:37? Like, I don't know.
If you think about it, she's always said, like, even in the Dateline, she said it took me 7 minutes to get home. So she was planning on being able to say that she was still outside that house when she made that first phone call at 12:33.
Yeah.
So she was like hinging on that. Yeah. So that she left at 12:34 after she made that first phone call. And now we know that she didn't call till after she hit him. So she's screwed.
So how did Trooper Garino, did he get that time of 12:36? Was that from Karen's phone extraction, or was that from the Wi-Fi system at the house? Did he ever say in the trial?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of things that are left, unfortunately, like a mystery. We're trying to figure things out, but things like that weren't clear to the jury either, and that's a problem. Hopefully, it'll be more clear this time. But it is interesting. Like, when did they get Karen's extraction? So we know they didn't get into Karen's phone until August of 2022, and that's when they broke through the code. And Trooper Proctor saw messages between Karen and David Yannetti, so he sent the phone off to the taint team at the Attorney General's office. And then we know from the several hearings back, that the state, I don't know, did they get the full extraction? Did they not get? Wouldn't the metadata, if you got the full extraction, wouldn't that include the metadata that they were asking for?
Yes, it would. We just, to me, unless you guys have seen it, because I haven't, I don't know the follow-up on her phone.
Well, and the motion, they made clear that they were informing the court, but that they had the right to it. It wasn't something that the judge had to approve.
Yeah, I think Brendan said he only wanted location data. He listed a few different things. I think it was maybe searches, location data, and something else. And they didn't really seem like they were fighting it. So whatever it was, they're probably like, yep, that's deleted. Like, that's my impression, is that whatever it was, they know it's not in there.
Well, they also couldn't fight it. They didn't have a legal leg to stand on, so it would have made no sense to. But it's just interesting. We know that Trooper Greeno said that the location data was turned off, and presumably sometime before this date, so it's no connection to it. But it still wasn't 100% clear. Well, how did they know that? That have to be from the extraction. Well, I don't know. It's just not clear how this stuff was discovered and when. Because like Matt and like Anonymous said, it seems like it was very late in the game that Karen still believed that she got home at 12:41.
And maybe that was a strategy.
Karen's words are worth nothing. Remember early on, she said she didn't remember anything. Remember the last time she saw John was back at the waterfall. So her words are worth nothing because they change constantly. Her story changes constantly. Her details change constantly. So her words are worth nothing in my view.
Here's a tweet that Turtle just made. Somebody drew my attention to. It says, after 2 weeks of bugging and asking him, Clerk Jim McDermott alerted my attorney via email at 9:45 that he needs me there by 11 to hear our motion to exempt me from the sequestration order. I live an hour away, so I had to get ready and just left. I should be there by 11:15. So I guess we'll get another dramatic Turtle Boy appearance, and that'll be part of the discussion today.
Okay. Never mind.
Go ahead. Don't hold back.
I would think that if I thought there was a possibility that I may have to be in court, that I would, head towards the vicinity. I mean, it's not like he has a job or anything to do during the day. So
it's not like he's not usually there anyways for these hearings. So
I'm sure this is not a stunt at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So what do you think? What do you guys think is going to go down in terms of his sequestration?
I mean, I've seen some cases where they just have, it's usually family though, like if they're sequestering the jury, but I think they already ruled that the family can sit, both families.
Yeah.
But like they'll have them testify first and then, so that they can't curb their testimony based on what's said in the courtroom. But I don't think that he should be treated as a journalist. He's harassed the witnesses. He went to their houses with a megaphone and a crowd of people. Like you can't say like, that's the same as Gretchen Voss. Like you can't say that. Like it's so ridiculous.
Well, the difference is too that they already stipulated on Gretchen Voss. There's no reason for her. I mean, she doesn't need to be called because the defense attorneys are going to agree that, the recordings are accurate. That's not the same situation, because she was acting as a journalist, right? So all she's got to offer them are recorded interviews, not, collusion. I mean, it's completely different.
This is a no-brainer. If he is going to be called, it's very simple. The rule applies, and the rule applies to him, and the rule applies to family. What they do in other cases, like in the Idaho case they're discussing right now, in the Lori Vallow case, people can testify earlier, right, that are relatives, so they can see the rest of it's not that they don't apply the rule to them, it's just they go out of order with witnesses. So there is absolutely, I don't care whether he's a journalist or whatever we want to name him, the rule applies to him.
I don't think he should be allowed to watch any trial with a jury. His statements have been consistent about trying to out and intimidate jurors. He's done this in the Chesna case. He's done it blatantly here. He's really made himself disqualified to sit with the media in front of any jury. That's my opinion. Sixth Amendment rights. People have a right to a fair trial. You know.
Did you see it? I have him blocked, so like I'm usually like a day or two behind on whatever nonsense he's talking about or doing, but he got into like a kerfuffle with the brother of a murder victim. Like, I mean, at what point can they just court order him out of the true crime community altogether? Because like this is getting ridiculous. He like literally he can't go to a courthouse without like a victim's family member or something being like, "Hey, you're a piece of shit." Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't mean to laugh, but it's just like how many times is he going to do it before it's not just a coincidence, it's a pattern. You know what I mean?
Matt and Jen, are you thinking about coming it up at all to visit during the trial? Is that classified?
I might be up, but I don't know when. Classified information.
Well, if you consider the week of May 12th, that could be a good week. Court TV is going to be up, so and I'll be staying a few nights in Dedham, and we'll try to make that a base. Kate will be there, and we'll all try to do some shows together from there, and just so many people that want to meet us, all the people connected to this case, and be a way for them to come and say hello. So that's May 12th.
There's something wonderfully defiant about like grouping up and going out in public too, especially because you've got like a whole mob that's like, none of these people should be allowed to go out in public. So like when we went to the TTD, there was like probably like 50 of us. I mean, like, I don't even think we planned to get it that big. It just happened, but it was wonderfully subversive in a way. We didn't get bothered at all either, although I wouldn't mind confrontation.
The power went out, but a storm hit and the power went out. And
the only beef we had was with Mother Nature and the power company.
Almost the whole time we were in the dark with a door open to give it, and the emergency lights. And the poor Chinese waiters running around like, how are we going to get paid? Because the cash registers are down and the credit card machines, and it's just, but they worked hard to keep everybody served and stuff like that. So it was, I don't know how late you guys stayed there. I think the power came on just before I left.
Yeah, we were there for a while.
I mean, I want to get a piñata with Karen Reed on it and let all the witnesses beat it and have Tito's inside.
It's an expensive piñata.
The outlaw Tito's.
You have to whack the piñata without breaking the bottles.
I think the little nips are plastic.
They are.
Oh, okay. All right.
It'll work.
Even from Massachusetts, know what? Little airline bottles.
The last time I had a nip was actually for the Court TV shoot in Dedham. When I was sitting there afterwards, I had offered to buy a bunch of people a round of drinks, but there's no bar in there. I look like a real hero. You offer to buy a round in a place where there's no bar. But one of the people had heard that, so she was a free Karen Reed person, but came over and gave me a nip of Jack Daniels, and then a little while later another one. So she had a Super Bowl in a bag. She had a Super Bowl party in a bag. She had so many nips in that thing. She called it a Canton bag.
What does that mean?
I'm like, apparently they go to a lot of events ready to party, like kids' sporting games and stuff like that is an excuse to kind of for everybody to get together. So kind of like us in college in Canton, the parents pregame before their 8th grade kids basketball game. They pregame, they go to the game, someone has a bag, then they meet up afterwards at a bar or at somebody's house and postgame. So they have a lot of fun. I hope they keep Uber. I hope they keep Uber very busy in the area on those days. But
that's the takeaway from all of this, honestly. Like, just take an Uber.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't. So 10:30. This is looking like a late start. We got. I have it on channel 5 to see if it starts. But so, maybe the delay is caused by Turtle Boy. Jay says you do have to pregame for pregame. So has anybody ever been able to find out if there was enough snow for Lucky to be actually plowing at 2:30? Is that still a mystery?
Kinda, I think. I mean, I think like, yeah, Matt's video, like, really nail on the head with that one. Perfect. Like, his word means less than nothing. And I think that he was definitely threatened. I think that at one point he had said, like, oh, my work won't let me talk to anyone, because he was trying to avoid getting involved at all. And then, Turtle Boy comes out swinging with this whole, like, you don't need to be afraid of the Alberts. You need to be afraid of me. Like, right.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, like, it's the same thing with Scanlon. Like, so I think that, like, right off the bat, the fact that this guy was essentially pressured into coming back and talking to Turtle Boy and then the defense again is a pretty clear indication that, like, nothing he says means anything at all.
Yeah, and it was weird that in your video, Matt, you showed that at one point he told the FBI, which they must only have that. Those FBI interviews of him must have come through with the TUI process material. But at one point, it sounds like he said that he started plowing at 12, which is, we know he didn't even report to work until 2:30. So,
right, that was his first statement. And
yeah,
it's like the feds are important, right? Like, that was before, I guess, he would have been influenced. So it's like, does he just not even know the timeline at all? And then he said, like, the cops were there by 3:30 a.m. So, I mean, I think that he drove by, you see him on the camera, and that's when Kerry Roberts was out front. And I think that's what he saw. And I think, everything's been twisted because he has a foggy memory, and they coached him into saying what they needed him to say.
Do you think he maybe saw Karen, though, at 5:23?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think Kerry Roberts had a Ford Explorer that was light colored, but he could have lied about that. Like, it's bizarre. I mean, I don't think he would know that much detail to, like, know what kind of car it was from that far away.
And he was influenced very early because it was Karen's private investigator, Paul Mikowski, who first interviewed him. And that was about 3 weeks after John's death. So I'm not accusing Mikowski of manipulating him, but let's be realistic.
They were probably accusing him at that time. I bet they were accusing him. They were probably like, oh, well, did you hit that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he would have been the first person to pin it on. So they probably were pressuring him in that respect, where they were like, oh, you don't remember hitting a basketball net? Like, who knows if they knew that? But I think that's who Karen wanted to blame, was the plow at first. So that's probably why he was into
I think by that time, so what I found from my research is that by the time of Karen's arrest and her arraignment, she and Yannetti didn't know about this idea of John getting beat up in the house, but those rumors were already going around town. And I have actually documented proof of that. And then when Scanlon called Yannetti and they talked, and then they met Yannetti with Mikowski. And so Scanlon, Yannetti, and Mikowski met in Yannetti's office. By this point, they were already starting to develop this theory that John was killed inside the house. So I think they were already well down that road when they interviewed Lucky 3 weeks later. And so they may have been trying to plant the idea that they're just looking for something weird, but trying to plant the idea that Lucky plowed there and didn't see something, right? Or what kind of vehicle did he see? Did he see what was the kind the vehicle that he says he saw? The Ford Edge?
Ford Edge, a light colored Ford Edge.
Yeah.
Which nobody
Right.
has.
Well, I think they were trying to say that Colin's parents have a light colored Ford Edge. That's what they were trying to say at the time.
The
They
problem,
doesn't
never
seem to be-
brought that up in trial, though.
Right.
problem is that Ford Edge is black. And even if you're colorblind, you see hues, white, grays, and blacks. And he says gray in the interview, which is far from black. So, you know, I mean, he was clearly intimidated. You know, I play it over and over and over again, all these clips of the blogger shouting out to him, just being so vile to him, bringing up why he's in Canton, just terrible things about his past, about his record. It was just horrible. So, you know, it's too bad, but he was. And then also recall, I expected him not to see the body. He's supposed to keep his eye on the road. I mean, to me, that showed why many of the other witnesses didn't see his body.
Right.
But I don't think he saw anything, and I think his words were intimidated.
Maureen says we should shut the hell up. Shut the hell up, you idiots.
Coming from my channel. Hi, Maureen.
Oh my God.
I just let
There
them
is an
know. It's
entertainment value with these guys.
yeah, and you know, if they need to get it out, then get it out, I guess. You know, I'm happy that my channel could be therapy for so many simpletons. It's like I don't, you know, do nearly enough good in my day all the time, but that is something that I've contributed to society today.
Question: when you stated the police broke the code on their phone in August, was that through a search warrant? Yes, of course. They had a search warrant. They had a warrant to take the phone. So,
And 2 phones.
and then they came back and got another phone a year later. That phone was suspicion. They were trying to find connections between her and Turtle Boy and to try to tie them to conspiracy to intimidate the witness. And we don't know if she allegedly wiped her phone while the police were waiting for it. So we don't know what they found, if anything, on that. I've never heard anything. Boy, they're really making us wait on this one. Come on, Bev.
It's not her fault. She has to hear a motion filed by a publicity hound megalomaniac.
Yeah. So just to let everybody know, I know I was really looking forward to, and maybe 5 of people out there were looking forward to being there in our audience, but we were going to do a draft night show like we did last year, NFL draft night, which is next Thursday, the 23rd. And I've decided I can't do it because I have to go through my initial chemo loading phase is the 23rd and the 24th. So I'll be at MGH in Boston for about 9 hours that Thursday. And then I have to go back for another 8-hour day Friday. So I just suspect that I might not be up for doing an NFL show that Thursday night. So I apologize for that. But I think we only had about 20 people there with us last year when we did it. It was going to be fun. I had some different people coming in, and it would have been great. But next year. Matt, what's your what kind of video concept you working on now? Anything new coming out?
I don't really have. I mean, I've been kind of going through the harassment stuff. You know, as these witnesses come up. So, because I think that the witnesses are under a lot more pressure in this case, not just because it's a high profile case, but especially in the first trial, like Katie McLaughlin already knew what she was going to be accused of. And so she was already kind of backing away from that. And it seemed unnatural, but it's because it was already all over Turtle Boy's blog. She was already being accused of it for a year prior. So I think it's just, you know, Julie Nagel, that's another one that they went after a lot. The nurse, like, it's just all these people that it's just so ridiculous. I just can't believe anyone falls for this.
Yeah.
It's like pathetic.
I kind of said that last night on Court TV, and I don't usually do that because they don't like me to do that. But again, they brought up the topic of 227. That's the question that came to me, and I just said, I said it's not just that you have top-notch experts that refute this, but you don't have to learn the intricacies of the technology involved. You can just look to logic. The fact that Karen asked the paramedic on the ambulance the same exact question that Jen said earlier that Karen had asked her, which prompted the original search. And then just look at the logic of, does it really make sense that Jen and Matt McCabe go home to 4 kids, and knowing that the plan was to drop their friend on the lawn to die, which would make them accomplices to murder, and that they're just going to calmly go home and communicate with the basketball coach and research the league, and just search how long it's going to take for this murder that we're now a part of to go forward. These aren't criminals. This isn't the mafia. These aren't people that have ever committed any crimes. It's just not. And so I basically said, at this point, I can't respect anybody who still believes in 227 if they've taken any kind of a serious look at the data. I shouldn't have said. They probably get mad at me for saying that, but I just can't respect anybody that believes 227 is real.
Yeah, it's definitely popping up again. Like on TikTok, there's new people every day that are like 227. It's like they didn't watch anything. They're just like making this content because it's popular now. I mean, that is the thing to latch onto. But I feel like that's the weakest part. I mean, there's a lot of weak parts of that argument. I think the dog bites are extremely weak, and those are the two most compelling things about the conspiracy. And they are so weak and easily debunked, and anyone with logic. And then her breaking her taillight, backing out of the driveway, like none of it makes any sense. It's like, you have to really be brain dead to like believe this.
I was thinking this morning, actually just earlier while we were talking, what are some of the potential new things, new evidence, or I guess new experts that the defense might have to get, to help there. We know there's going to be new stuff for the prosecution. The only thing that came to mind was, obviously they can now say that Michael Proctor was fired, and they could possibly point to Trooper Tully and Detective Kevin Albert being disciplined. I think Buchanan might have had some slight disciplining too. I can't really think of anything new that they would have. Could you guys think of anything?
I think it said ARCA was going to re-examine, or they were going to, I don't know if they did that, but so ARCA might have done more tests. I don't know.
They have Holly Price on their witness list from Google.
Who's that? From Google?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what she would testify to, other than I was thinking like the Nest Cam stuff.
You know what? At the end of the day, the defense's strategy in almost every trial is really just to respond and try to discredit witnesses that the prosecution brings up. So that's why, for instance, in this case, I believe there were only 3 witnesses that they even called after this long trial. So, at the end of the day, that's typically always the defense's strategy, and I think that will remain.
I just really want to see the Reeds on the stand, like the father, like he's been lying all along. The brother, they all looked at that taillight. Obviously, if she's telling them I struck something last night, the guy's dead. They all examined her car, and so like the fact that they didn't put any of them on the stand in the first trial just is very telling that her taillight was that broken.
Yeah. So Nick's latest ploy, now after a year and a half of saying that the taillight was clearly only cracked in the video in the driveway. I mean, I don't know how many times I had to hear him say it. Now they've got this new thing, and they've put together this image that they give to him, and they gave it to Court TV, and Court TV puts it up on the screen, that it shows the taillight, yes, indeed, was missing pieces, but in a different way that it was found later on in the Sally Port. That's the latest defense.
God.
I'm so done with the semantics. Oh, it was just cracked. It wasn't broken. Like, it's all the same thing. I mean, like, they're literally picking apart words that people use interchangeably. Like, well, this person said that it was just broken a little bit, but it wasn't completely broken. Like, yeah, depending on his perspective, that's not the entire assembly. Like, right? It's only that side corner, but it's the whole piece in that corner. I think it's just ridiculous. And the other thing that keeps getting brought up that is really grinding my gears is they keep saying they missed red pieces of taillight the size of a dinner plate. Like, that is not accurate. Dinner plates are like 12 inches is usually the diameter, right? And a taillight, that piece of like taillight assembly is like 14 inches. So like, no, they didn't find any pieces the size of a freaking dinner plate. That's like the whole piece that was missing.
Yeah, it bothers me. It's really deceptive. They still keep saying this, and even Court TV, they had a new guy on there last night who works for them, who said that these taillight pieces were found in a couple of inches of snow, and he highlighted the area around John. No taillight pieces were found around John. Some scattered pieces were found on the lawn, but the majority of them were found in the gutter under a plowed snowbank, and that's why they weren't found earlier. But I don't know why that's so hard to grasp, but they keep repeating that lie, and a certain percentage of the media keeps running with it. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, Boston media is definitely grifting. You know, I mean, this whole case just shows that the media is, you can't rely on them. Like, maybe some people, but for the most part, the media it's all about likes and clicks, just like it is in an algorithm, and that's what most people care about. They're going to run with the popular story, even if it's wrong, even if they're, you know, inciting a mob against innocent people. They don't care.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Jen, what are the new documents that came out from Delphi? I don't know anything about them. I just heard there were a couple on Court TV was doing a show on a Monday night.
So regarding Delphi, all I know about is, again, they've actually released the transcripts. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, the transcripts of and the videos. I mean, I've seen the videos, or I shouldn't say video, the audio of Richard Allen's confessions.
Okay.
Have you seen those?
I've seen some of the interviews done with the police with him. I watched a while of the first one. So this is before he's been arrested. And they're asking him questions, including about his original interview that he did with them 6 years before. And, but no, I didn't know. Court TV, I just knew Court TV had asked me to go on Monday night at 9, and then they canceled later to say there were new documents out in Delphi and they were going to cover that. So I wasn't sure what they were. Oh, yeah, just a shout out to everybody here. Sorry, I forgot. So Kate's channel is Masshole Mafia, and so you can find we'll be streaming always from this channel, from there, from Matt's channel, Boundless Millennial, and from Breaking the Case with Jen Coffindaffer. You'll be able to find this streaming of this trial at any one of those channels. And please go. Some people are actually nice, and they've told me they go into all and hit like just to kind of do everybody a favor.
So nice.
So
that's nice.
Heartstar has a question for you, Jen.
Oh, let me look.
Do you think Richard Allen is guilty?
I am deeply concerned at the investigation into that case, and I do not think it was properly investigated. I don't believe all the evidence was put forth. I believe that much of the evidence was wrong or not collected. So I have a lot of issues with that particular case.
All right. Looks like we're going to get some action.
All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Jones.
Excellent.
Justice of the
All right. See you guys after.
Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. You may be seated.
Judge 22-117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I have counsel identify themselves for the record?
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
I'm Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Hank Brennan for the
Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. Brennan.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson from the street.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also on behalf of Ms.
Good
Reed.
morning, Ms. Little.
Morning, Your Honor. Robert Alessi on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Lessie.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Unetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Unetti.
Morning, Your Honor. Victoria George from Karen Reed.
Good morning, Ms. George. Good morning, Ms. Reed. All right, so I appreciate getting those lists on what we all thought were still either under advisement or needed to be heard today. There's one that it seemed that, all right, we'll start, first of all, let's start with the defendant's renewed motion that is not in writing. I think, Ms. Little, I think this was your motion for a forensically sound copy. You wanted to be heard on that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You did not file anything new, right?
No, just the motion
Okay.
for reconsideration.
When was that filed? That was filed a long time ago, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was prior to the motion.
All right.
Your Honor, the defense respectfully requests that this court reconsider the portion of its February 18th, 2025 order denying defendant's motion to compel the production of a forensically sound copy of the Sallyport video surveillance footage from January 29th, 2022. The court obviously understands the importance of establishing the bona fides of the Canton Sallyport video in this case. The court sat through trial. You watched the testimony regarding the inverted video. The court initially denied the request for a forensically sound copy because I believe the court indicated it did not have an affidavit from an expert suggesting that the procedure proposed by the Commonwealth and objected to by the defense would result in the destruction of metadata. We have since provided the court with an affidavit from our expert establishing that if the Commonwealth engaged in the protocol that they proposed, namely simply dragging and dropping files from the Canton Police Department computer onto a USB drive, then all of the associated metadata would either be destroyed or otherwise unverifiable. And of course, right after we filed that affidavit, the very next morning, the Commonwealth went ahead and dragged and dropped the files from the Canton Police Department computer over to a USB drive. That damage has been done. It can't be rectified, but there may still be some metadata and available evidence on the Canton Police Department computer that our expert can glean if that data is properly imaged. The import of this video surveillance cannot be overstated. This is a seminal issue at trial. I have conferred with our expert. I do believe that there's a chance that we may still be able to obtain some relevant information. And so we're asking that the court order this. I would also note that after the hearing on this specific issue, the Commonwealth produced a new report. That report was dated February 27th, 2025. And in that report, Canton Police Department Sergeant DGM Pietro claims for the very first time that he was responsible for downloading all of the Canton Police Department surveillance video, in this case, onto the detective drive at issue. So that's everything from January 29th. That's incredibly important. We don't have all of that information, and we're asking the court to order that that be properly imaged for our review.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brennan.
It seems the defense characterization as forensically sound is fluid. It's difficult to follow. What is clear is that we invited them to come to the Canton Police Department, bring their expert, download anything that was on the DVR, which nothing existed. And then we further invited them to download the detective file. They had over a month to do that. They declined. That invitation has been ongoing. It's been constant, and it is current. If they would like to go to the Canton Police Department with their expert and download any of the detective file and see what exists, they're welcome to do that. So if they want a court order allowing them to come, which they don't need because we've invited them continuously, we'll agree to the court order. They're welcome to come anytime.
So is the Commonwealth now agreeing that we can forensically image the Canton Police Department detective file? Because we've been denied that request.
Okay, so I really don't want you talking to each other. I want you talking to me. All right, so you asked the question to me. Answer it, Mr. Brennan.
the defense cannot download the entire detective file because it contains files wholly unrelated to this case. And it would then intrude upon private information and other investigations. They can go to the detective file and they can download everything to do with this case. But they cannot have a photo image of the entire detective file of the Canton Police Department.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next motion we're going to do is just the motion for the view. I had asked defense counsel to propose something about how Ms. Reed will get there. Have the two of you talked at all about how we're going to do our view? Two sides talked?
We haven't talked about the logistics. I'm happy to do that. I don't think that's a very lengthy conversation between the Commonwealth.
Right, but we have to make arrangements, so that was something that I asked you to figure out. You say Ms. Reed wants to go on the view. She can go on the view. How do you propose that's done?
The simplest way would be for her to, obviously the jurors would be transported the exact same way that they were transported last time. We were on a bus. As I stand here, I can't remember if we were we were not on the same bus as the jurors.
Yes, we were.
We were just separated by seats, by
Right.
distance. I don't know that would be the best protocol. I think the better practice would probably be for the defense team to arrive at the same time, follow the bus in a separate vehicle, which we can provide. And Ms. Reed would be separated from the jurors the same way that the defense counsel was separated from the jurors and the Commonwealth was separated from the jurors, but just be there and able to observe the same circumstance that we observed last time.
So I'm not going to allow all defense counsel to come in a separate vehicle because then it will be the Commonwealth in the bus with the jurors. We need defense counsel. One defense counsel can go in a car then separately with Ms. Reed,
That's
and
fine.
the rest will be on the bus.
That's fine.
I do need you to talk to figure out when you want to do this view. Did you want input, Mr. Brennan?
The only issue that was of difference was whether or not the motor vehicle would be at the address. The only reason I had reluctance, I thought it was unfairly prejudicial to the defense. If they decide
They want it, right? You want the vehicle there at the time?
We do.
if they want it there, then I'll be agreeable.
Okay.
That was my concern at the time, but if that's that request, I'll agree to it.
Okay.
The date of the view, I didn't know if the court wanted any confidentiality in the date of the view. I would like to talk to.
So why don't I see counsel at sidebar about this anyway?
Well, I guess we need a new drinking game for today. Every time they go to sidebar, we drink.
I mean, it's 11 a.m., so no.
It's a drinking in our mind, Kate. Play along. I'm not actually sitting here sucking down whiskeys, especially every time we played before. Every time Alessi said methodology, we had to drink. I wouldn't be able to survive that anymore.
Well, it makes sense. They don't want to publicize when the view is so that a bunch of lunatics don't plan to go down there and screw the whole thing up.
Absolutely. And there were people there last time taking pictures from a distance, but close enough. So last time when they did the view, Lally asked the jurors to pay extra close attention to the console. There are different theories about what he could have been doing there, but what do you guys think on that? Because he didn't really bring it up later.
I remember him bringing that up in his direct with Jen McCabe, and Jen McCabe didn't know what he was looking for either. He's like, "Did you see anything in the console? Did you notice anything?" So I don't know if I have no idea what it would be. Is it the thing that shuts off your automatic braking system? Is it a charger?
I think he wants to point out how big the screen is and
Right.
how many safety features are available on the console. He just did a really terrible job because I think, he's trying to say pretty much there's no way that she didn't know that she hit him. And I agree entirely. I think you can't even hit a pothole and not realize that you've hit something, right? So I think that he was trying to impress, look at all these safety features. It would have, but he just did a terrible job.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you today off the subject that it really is, well, from all week, it's starting to look beautiful in Boston right now. The red buds are starting to turn to green, so you got the little leaves coming in. It's a little windy there today, but I think it's going to be a beautiful afternoon. But yesterday was a beautiful, beautiful day in Boston. Really, really good. Obviously, Matt can't enjoy that, but Matt's not. It's different from Matt because we're experiencing the warm weather coming back. So you remember how that feels, but you have it all year, so.
Well, to some degree. I mean, it's nice weather this time of year, but it's more like your winter is like my summer. The summer comes and it's just like a wave of humidity that doesn't go away.
Oh my God.
And
yeah.
you can't wait for that to get away.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I do not have the hair type for all that. So
Me either.
You just got to get used to being greasy and frizzy.
yeah, I mean that's pretty much the summers in New England for me. I can't even imagine in Florida. That would be terrible.
So opening statements will be Tuesday, and then will they go right to the first witnesses in the afternoon, I assume?
I wonder if they're still going to have the same restriction where it's an hour. Is that what she gave them last time? I mean, I've just seen cases where like the opening statements can be all day. So like in closing statements. So like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just her court that it's a rule or it's Massachusetts that's the standard. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's usually a restriction. Was it an hour? It might have even been a half hour, right? It was pretty short, it felt like to me.
I think it was an hour. I think
was it an hour?
That's
okay.
correct. Yeah, it's probably just to keep things moving. It's just unfortunate that she doesn't limit a lessee like she does the opening statements. But yeah, thank God he's not opening, right? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, all right. Here we go.
All right. Don't understand the motion regarding Dr. Welcher, because that's been decided. So why is that here on this list? Is it erroneously on the list?
It's not erroneously, Your Honor, but Mr. Brennan and I spoke about it. We have an agreement that will obviate the need for the court, which is my presumption. Mr. Brennan is going to state it, and that would be my suggestion to Your Honor, and then we can move on to the next matter. We've reached agreement.
Okay, what's the agreement? What's the agreement?
The agreement is there's going to be a redaction to the PowerPoint presentation of Dr. Welcher, specifically page 37. There was, according to Attorney Brennan, an erroneous remnant on 37.
Okay, so why don't you just provide me with the new slide so I know what it is? Okay.
I will do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. So Lieutenant Wing, docket 607 and 658. So what I want to know about that, Mr. Brennan, before we begin is, do you have the new report of Lieutenant Wing?
I do. I received it last night. I haven't read it, but I discussed it with counsel. I understand it's just minor edits to the original report. So that won't delay any hearing on this.
All right, so you're prepared to go forward?
I am.
All right, I'll hear you.
Your Honor, the defense proposes Mr. Wing as a dog bite expert. I think it is too late to ask for a Lanigan hearing. The trial's upon us, regardless of whether or not I think I have standing for it. I do not want to delay this trial in any way. However, there are concerns about the qualifications of Mr. Wing. He has no experience in pattern recognition analysis. I see no training on his resume. I will not hold the defense to the standard they've tried to employ, that he is not a medical expert, nor will they rely on Dr. Russell saying she's the only qualified individual in the country, but rather this person should have some qualification to come into court and give an opinion that a abrasion is supposedly a dog bite. It doesn't appear that Mr. Wing is a certified trainer. It doesn't appear that Mr. Wing has ever testified in court before. And so to expedite the matter, rather than look or seek a Lanigan hearing, I think it would be helpful to have a short voir dire regarding his qualifications before he's presented as a witness, so the court can determine whether or not he is in fact even a qualified witness in this case.
Thank you, Your Honor. With regard to the report, I just want to underscore that there are changes and I discussed these with Attorney Brennan, but I want the record to be clear. There was an objection to the original report of references to Dr. Crosby. We removed those, so those are fairly substantial.
Are there any other changes to it other than the removal of Dr. Crosby?
There are, but there, as Attorney Brennan indicated, they're minor parlance, et cetera, but otherwise it's the same substance.
Okay. So why don't you provide me with the new or redacted one as well, and I'll take a look at it.
Right,
Okay.
that has, I will do that, Your Honor. I'll provide the court with that forthwith. The second is on the substance. Lieutenant Wing is extraordinarily experienced. You will see that in his report. The summary of his experience, because it would take a lot of time to go through it. For several years, he's been one of, if not the country's leading experts on training law enforcement with regard to the use of canines, not only with bite and hold techniques, but also with what are called washout dogs, which are very much similar to civilian, some call them pet dogs. He has extraordinary experience with wound recognition. Attorney Brennan respectfully is incorrect when he says he doesn't have experience with pattern recognition. His experience is extraordinary in that regard. Your Honor will make her own judgment, but the report clearly establishes his pattern recognition. His methodology, unlike that of Dr. Crosby, is stated in his report, and in addition, he cites two specific studies for his report, including pattern recognition. And the whole topic of pattern recognition was well established through Dr. Russell. So Your Honor will see that as well. My last category of points to make, Your Honor, is this. The timing of this report came in light of the court's ruling on Dr. Crosby that a non-medical doctor can opine on wounds to humans. And we did make a motion for reconsideration with regard to Dr. Crosby, and understanding the court's schedule and other matters, given that there was not an ability to have that motion determined, we then decided that we had to submit the report of Lieutenant Wing. We want to make clear that Lieutenant Wing is being offered not as a rebuttal, but as part of the defense's case in chief. And it is part of that in light of the March 6th order of the court with regard to Dr. Crosby. The aspects of behavior in combination with a wound recognition is different from Dr. Russell. There is overlap, but it's different. And the bottom line here is that the approach of Lieutenant Wing in his qualifications exceed that of Dr. Crosby. And my request, Your Honor, is I do not believe there is at all a need for any kind of a hearing. Again, Your Honor will make that judgment when the court believes that notwithstanding the qualifications of Lieutenant Wing and his methodology as set forth in his report, we would respectfully request that we have a voir dire hearing on Dr. Crosby. We have made that request of Dr. Crosby.
That's another motion. That's good. That's what we're going to hear now.
Understood. And I was just going to say, I am not going to get into the basis for that. I just wanted to, because.
Just go ahead. Just move on.
Yeah. So my request would be that a determination on whether or not there's a voir dire of Lieutenant Wing abide the motion and have a voir dire hearing on, at a minimum, wait for that determination until the court reads the report of Lieutenant Wing.
Right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So there's also a motion for reconsideration regarding Dr. Crosby. I can tell you regarding reconsideration, I've found that he is an expert. I am not going to reconsider whether or not Dr. Crosby is an expert. I'm not going to reconsider whether he can testify as something is consistent or inconsistent with dog bites. But Mr. Brennan, I don't see how you're going to have him testify as to whether these marks could have come from Chloe, the specific dog. I think that you can certainly talk about measurements that may have been made, but I don't see how he can testify that this either was or was not this particular dog, particularly in light of the most recent National Academy of Science report that found that no evidence of an existing scientific basis for identifying an individual to the exclusion of all others via bite mark evidence. So what do you want to say about that?
Your Honor, there's a distinct difference between inclusion and exclusion. The National Academy of Forensic Science was an extraordinary study, well respected. I've read it many times, and that is a consensus among experts that teeth structure can in many ways be similar. So it is unfair to conclude that a particular person or a particular dog should be included or identified as the person who left that particular pattern. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It is different in kind and not within the realm of that study or any other studies that I've seen to exclude a person or a dog as the contributor of that bite. And here, there is definitive evidence to clearly show and base an opinion that the dog named Chloe was not the cause of those wounds. That is the whole purpose of having the mold of Chloe, which is done with humans routinely, often, orthodontists, dentists, restructuring. The spacing itself is so distinguishable between the molds and the spacing on Mr. O'Keefe's arm. It is an objective, a specific, and a substantive basis to draw a conclusion that there is no way to a degree of certainty that these wounds were caused by Chloe's mouth. In particular, Dr. Russell had opined not only that the bites were consistent with a dog wound, but she also opined about molars in different parts of the mouth. And since the defense has decided to likely identify particular teeth and structures as the basis to say it's comparable, consistent with a dog, we should be able to counter that in rebuttal, not in our case in chief, in rebuttal, that these molds showed to a reasonable degree of certainty that these wounds could not have been caused by Chloe. So it's exclusion, not inclusion.
It's an uphill battle for you, I'll tell you that. I'll hear from Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can go through this quickly. The National Academy of Science, the 2009 report Your Honor is referring to, there is no finding in that exclusion's okay, but inclusion is not. There's nothing in there to support that proposition. That's number one. Number two, with regard to the opinion of Dr. Crosby, he did use a mold, but he didn't use the overlay. In the NAS, I'll shortcut it, 2009, the only way you even get to discuss it is you have to have the mold and the overlay. Dr. Crosby doesn't have the overlay. So even not considering the first point I made, where that's allowed for humans, you need a mold and an overlay. So there is no basis in science for the proposition that with certainty this could not be Chloe. So in sum, the inclusion-exclusion distinction that Mr. Brennan tries to make is nowhere rooted in the NAS study. And the point that Your Honor made and that we have made consistently is that there's little difference between inclusion and exclusion when you get to the methodology that's employed. So we, Your Honor, would support what Your Honor's comment was in the beginning, and that is there should be no discussion with regard to Chloe on inclusion or exclusion basis. Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you want to reply?
I would simply suggest that there is no authority that I'm aware of that prohibits exclusion, none. And as a predicate, and I know it's a side matter, the idea of Chloe as a predicate, that requires third-party culprit. And so before there can even be discussion about that, there would have to be an offer of proof that we have not seen and has not been presented. So it really should be irrelevant. But if the defense is going to try to bring it up, it's going to become a live issue. And if we have an obligation or we have a need to rebut, we want to fully rebut any of those claims.
Okay, which is why originally I was going to hear this motion to reconsider after the defense presented their witnesses. So, all right, thank you. The substitute chemist, is there any objection to the substitute chemist? It's Commonwealth's motion 663.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so Jim, 63 is allowed.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you both have motions that are similar regarding, it's the Commonwealth 669 and Defense 670, I believe. It's about the audio visual aids and giving notice. So you're both in agreement to give notice to the other side before you use anything, and have you done so with regard to openings?
The Commonwealth agrees to give notice. We've provided a number of clips of statements that we seek to use during the trial. I hope to narrow the ones that we're going to use specifically so the defense could have more notice of it. We have a clip that we'd like to offer in the opening. I'm not sure if our office has provided that to the defense. If not, we'll do that shortly after the hearing.
Okay. Who's arguing this for the defense, or who's telling me what's
I am,
going
Your
on?
Honor. We're happy to provide notice. We have not yet received the particular audio clip that the Commonwealth intends to use during opening, but we're happy to provide any visual aids that we intend to use as soon as today.
All right. I'd like to see what you both intend to use in your openings, because whether you agree with it or not, I have to make sure that it's admissible, that I know it will be coming into evidence before I let you put it up there.
That really is the
This is
motion.
for the court. The Commonwealth will provide a copy to defense. That's
Okay, thank you. Can I have the defense what you intend to put up?
This is a single photograph, Your Honor. I'll provide it to the court immediately after the hearing.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'll add that there are a number of statements that we have clipped. We, with the court's permission, would like to provide an entire package to the court so you can have an opportunity to view if you wanted to.
Thank you. So I need the defense to look at this before the end of the hearing, because I don't want to bring everybody back tomorrow if you object to what the Commonwealth intends to put in their opening. Did you tell them what it is? Like, is it something that they already have?
They've had the materials, the interviews in total, but we've clipped the pieces that we want. It's been an ongoing process. I understand my office has sent a slew of those clips to the defense.
Okay.
I want to narrow it down. We're not going to use all of them unless there's a rebuttal portion, but I want to narrow down what we're giving them. But we've been over-inclusive in what we intend to provide.
The Commonwealth provided at least 44 clips. I'd ask for whatever they intend to actually use in their opening so we can look at it for.
I think that's what they just said. They're just going to
Yes,
give
we'll
you.
give them the file name and if the court takes a recess, we'll give them the file
Yes,
name.
I'd like to do that just in case there's an objection, or I can bring you all back tomorrow or Friday, and I don't really want to do that to you. So, all right, so we'll just take a look at that. Okay, so that sort of also covers, I guess, the Commonwealth's motion regarding the use of extrajudicial statements. And if you hang on while I grab that. Is there an objection to that motion?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Can I make a note?
Yes, please.
The defense, I'm sure, is aware, but I want to point out as part of that motion, we're asking to have an independent reader, someone who is not an officer or involved in this case. I don't expect there'll be any emphasis or drama in the presentation of text messages, but I think an independent reader is fairer, more objective, and we'd like to have that independent reader take the stand at times throughout the case when we want to introduce certain text messages that don't involve a participant.
All right. How are you going to find this person?
Well, we could have somebody plainclothes from the state police, or we could find somebody that's agreeable to the defense, but I think it would be best if we have an independent reader who's available throughout the trial to play that role.
Okay.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, thank you for the time to consult with my colleagues. I don't think we're in a position to agree or disagree at this point. I don't know exactly which text messages or which conversations are intended to be independently read. At the last trial, they simply came in through the person that found the text messages. Mr. Lally asked, I think, Mr. Garino, I can't remember his first name, Mr. Garino to recite the messages from both sides, and that was done pretty effectively and expeditiously. But unless I know more about exactly what the theater of having an independent reader is going to be like, I can't really weigh in.
Go ahead.
May I?
Yes.
Wherever there's a witness involved in the conversation, if those text messages are admissible, it would come in through the witness. Text messages between Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant, there is no author of those. And so we will introduce those text messages, the admissible ones, at different parts in the trial when they become relevant. So it's not sufficient to simply have a state police officer who is not a witness to those text messages to come in and read them continuously through the trial. Mr. Garino is an independent witness in this case. To bring him back regularly as a police officer, I think creates the wrong impression. I think objectively, we can have somebody come in who simply reads those text messages when they're appropriate to introduce.
I would disagree gently with Mr. Brennan. That's exactly what the proper protocol is. If Mr. Garino is the one who found it, he's a state trooper, he found the text messages. He was the one who downloaded the data. He was asked about those text messages previously. I think having him come back, and it doesn't matter how many times he comes back, he's paid by the state. He can come back 5 times or 1 time. But to have somebody else come in or other individuals come in to act as readers, I think that is not in keeping with the ordinary course of presentation of the evidence. It just doesn't make sense to me to have a reader come in. It seems to add a theater to the text messages that are inappropriate. I don't know who these individuals would be. And the text messages are admissible because they're their statement of a party opponent, and the other is the context of the statement of the party opponent. So I don't see any reason to change the protocol that we had last time.
All right. If I were to allow an independent reader, do you have a male and a female? Or would it be a male reading a female's responses?
I haven't identified anybody, but I can get a male and a female.
All right.
And that's exactly what we don't want. I think that's inappropriate. It's not going to be Mr. O'Keefe, and it's not going to be Ms. Reed. The text messages speak for themselves. The jurors should be able to analyze the words that are on the page, the text messages as they were written and drafted, not the inflections and the repartee between two independent people with motives that may or may not be consistent with the text messages. As we all know, it's a very, very different circumstance to have a text message communication with someone and have a conversation with someone, for instance, telephonically or verbally. People talk about it all the time. Things get lost in text messages. Having them read by a state trooper who found them.
So it can be perhaps not a state trooper. That's all. I understood it to be to take out all infliction and completely that.
Right. I heard Mr. Brennan say the same thing. I don't know that that's actually what's going to happen. And this lends itself to sort of a theatrical presentation that's completely unnecessary and could be incredibly objectionable. And then once it's done, it's done.
All right. I will consider it.
There'll be no inflection. That would be inappropriate.
Thank you. All right. Defendant's motion for specific discovery, paper 638, Jimmy. All right. Who's arguing it?
Yes, that's me, Judge. Good morning. Before court today, Mr. Brennan and I conferred, and I think we've largely reached agreement. The only numbered items on which we do not agree are 3 and 4, which are related. I will say as a preface that we are withdrawing request number 8. And with regard to request number 7, we've agreed on the following language, Judge, which I would read into the record. Number 7 would be any indication of a witness willing to change testimony in exchange for any consideration. With that, I would ask the court to allow the motion. With regard to 3 and 4, I believe that we should receive information if there's a witness who has expressed to the Commonwealth either a refusal or a reluctance to testify in this matter or to cooperate in any way.
Okay. There's no authority for that in Rule 14, correct?
We believe that it's consistent with Rule 14, which is why we've made the request.
Okay. Where in Rule 14 or the reporter's notes?
Relevant and discoverable. It applies to a witness's credibility, motives, intent, and that's the basis on which we make the request.
Okay. I'll hear from the Commonwealth.
Number 5? Yes. With regard to number 5, we also talked about modifying the language. Mr. Brennan had taken it down for us. Any information of any witness regarding promises, inducements, or rewards to that witness.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, regarding 3 and 4, what's the Commonwealth's position?
Your Honor, that does not go to motive or credibility. It is not within Rule 14, should not be discoverable. It's irrelevant. It doesn't show any bias on behalf of the witness if they had any reluctance or concerns about testifying. I have been very broad in my agreements regarding discovery. Anything that is Rule 14, exculpatory, even their specific requests, which extend beyond Rule 14, I am more than happy to give them. But I think 3 and 4 are personal, irrelevant, and have nothing to do with bias or credibility.
Okay. Thank you. All right. The ARCA witnesses. Motions regarding that. So where do you stand, Mr. Brennan, with what has been provided and what you might think has not been provided.
There are two issues. There is the discovery that we have requested in the past. At this point, I stand unsatisfied with that discovery production. And then secondly, there is the limitations that should be imposed upon ARCA based on what has been provided pursuant to reciprocal discovery. I'd like to start with the second part, and that is we have a little chronology. December 5th, 2024, we submitted docket 442, Commonwealth's motion for reciprocal discovery, which was allowed by the court. There were a number of other motions which led to March 27, 2025, docket 640, Commonwealth's motion to compel reciprocal discovery of ARCA witnesses or to exclude their testimony. And then the next day, on March 28, 2025, the defense responded with docket 642, which was a response to docket 442. And so what we were looking for, not only Rule 14, but more specifically our discovery motion, was information from ARCA that would make clear the relationship between the ARCA witnesses and the defense back from its inception. It is important because that information, a thorough vetting of the information, may be a basis for the Commonwealth to inquire of these ARCA witnesses, if they're called, about candor, truthfulness, and full disclosure. And so while we've received some answers to our questions, we want a full vetting of that history. On a prior date, the court suggested that perhaps we could have a voir dire, not regarding their qualifications, but regarding this very issue about the relationship between the witnesses and the defense. That is one viable option. My concern specifically is if they are subject to a voir dire the day before their testimony, they're traveling from out of state, they will not have with them documents and other items which are necessary for the Commonwealth's review and likely use during the examination. And so if the court was to maintain there would be a voir dire the day before the hearing, I would ask for an order from the court to order ARCA to bring the discovery that was ordered in the Commonwealth's discovery motion back on December 5th, 2024. The response by the defense, a large part of it is that it's not within their custody or control. And so these items, I expect, would be in the custody and control of these ARCA witnesses. There are a number of specific items which we sought in our discovery motions. Those items include communications, billing, emails, text messages, etc. And so those documents, if we do not obtain them in advance or the day before the witnesses are set to testify, we will never have an opportunity to send them home to get the materials that are relevant. So if the defense position is not in their custody and control, then I ask the court to order the ARCA witnesses to provide that information prior to the voir dire so that we can review it. Secondly, the defense has provided that they have retained the ARCA witnesses independently. We have received no new discovery other than communications and emails. What is concerning is that in the notice from the defense, there is some suggestion about the ARCA witnesses potentially rebutting or commenting on Mr. Welch's testimony. Discovery deadlines have passed some time ago. It would be inappropriate at this point to have any new opinions, any new information, any new reports. We have been steadfast from the beginning of this case, early on, about discovery deadlines. And so my expectation is if the ARCA witnesses testify, they would be required to testify pursuant to their February 12, 2024 report, and they would not be able to provide any further opinions, any further ideas, or any further reports.
So the two things, to simplify it, that I'm looking for is for the court to have that voir dire, again, for a limited purpose, to order ARCA witnesses to comply with the discovery order that the court has already imposed, and to have ARCA limited to the discovery that was properly provided before the discovery deadlines. Those are my three requests.
Okay, who's arguing this?
I want to go in reverse order briefly, if I could, concerning the discovery deadlines. We have continued to receive new notices of discovery from the Commonwealth well after the same deadlines that Mr. Brennan is now bringing up concerning ARCA. They filed their notice of completion or certificate of completion long ago, and we have consistently received new information from their experts, new reports, amended reports, redacted reports, additional information. Both sides understand that discovery is an ongoing situation, sometimes out of our control. To that point, on March 26, 2025, we received for the first time official notice from the United States Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice that we, the defense, or either side, the Commonwealth as well, were free to engage ARCA directly as expert witnesses in this case. On that same day, we contacted the Commonwealth. Actually, the very next day, we contacted the Commonwealth and provided them information that we would be and had engaged them. We've provided the engagement agreement. We've provided them with all discovery that we have appropriate thereto. And insofar as, or to the extent that any additional testing and or analysis is completed by those experts, because keep in mind, it's only been, we can count it in days that we've actually been able to engage them. If there is in fact additional testing and or analysis that is noteworthy, then we will, or that we intend to use, we will obviously provide that to the Commonwealth forthwith, which we indicated in our moving papers. We will maintain that posture throughout. And if there is additional information to be disclosed, it will be disclosed. It will be disclosed in a timely manner. We do not have anything as yet as we stand here today, but we.
What do you think a timely manner is? What ballpark are you talking?
When I get a report, I will turn it over the same day. If I get a report, I will turn it over the same day. If I get a new analysis, I will turn it over the same day. If we get new testing results, we will turn those over the same day that we get them. In other words, I can't control the conduct of the experts. They may or may not be engaging in additional testing or analysis, but if they are, once I get it, we'll turn it over. So that's all I can say to that. We're not holding anything back. We're not hiding anything. We're, as soon as we get something, if we get it, to the extent that there is additional analysis or testing done, that will be turned over forthwith. With regard to docket number 642, we did, Your Honor, I don't want to waste the court's time. We did respond in detail to every single one of the 12 requests that the Commonwealth has made. I'm happy to go through those if the court wishes me to, but.
Hold on one second. Mr. Brennan, are there specifics that you say are still outstanding of the 13 or however many points there were? Because this is on what you filed. So this is not unusual. A party says, we asked for all 13. Another party says, we gave them to you. And then the party says, I don't have them. Can we narrow this? Is there anything specifically that Mr. Jackson should address?
Yes. Their response is that it's not in their custody and control.
So for which ones? Which of your numbers?
Number one, a complete statement of all opinions to be expressed by Daniel Wolf.
Okay.
And their response is the information in the possession, custody, and control of the defense has already been produced. That obviously understates the fact that they would hope to have new opinions. That is the very point that this is not responsive. Their discovery deadline has passed. And so I would like to talk about or respond after Attorney Jackson is done about what is going to evolve from this conversation. This is exactly what I was worried about back in November, what I expected might happen and should not have happened. So it's difficult now to parse the different pieces of my discovery request, but we do not have all of the billing, all of the communications, all the text messages, all the emails between the parties. And if the defense's position is not in their custody control, well, it's certainly in the custody control of ARCA. We do not have all prior reports, all prior testing, all field testing, photographs, pictures. We don't even know who was what part of this report.
Okay.
And so my tolerance about this ongoing development of discovery is a extraordinary problem for me. This is the number one issue I anticipated and that I've tried to prevent.
Okay. So address number one, Mr.
The
Jackson.
number one issue that Mr. Brennan has anticipated and tried to prevent is ARCA testifying. Let's just call it like it is.
So
Desperately
address
does
number
not want
one, please.
I
Okay.
am. That's what I'm doing, Your Honor. We have provided on April 12th, about 1,000 pages, additional pages, responsive to the request specific to ARCA. The response that we provided to request number one is as follows. The information in the possession, custody, and control of the defense has already been produced and can be found in the ARCA report, the voir dire testimony, and the trial testimony of Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler. That is specifically in response to request number one. What we have, they have. Mr. Brennan constantly stands up and says, we don't have all the emails, we don't have all the communications, et cetera. They have everything. We've already turned that over. There is nothing that we have not turned over that's in our possession. With regard to the new information that Mr. Brennan says, this is exactly what I was worried about, et cetera, we could not engage these experts until we got permission from the Department of Justice. The federal government had to give us permission. They gave both sides permission on March 26th, 2025. We immediately, Your Honor, as best we could, leapt into action to contact ARCA and engage them formally so that they could act as experts for the defense in this case in furtherance of potential testimony moving forward. We do not have additional testing results. We do not have additional analysis. We do not have additional reports or findings as yet because it's only been a few days. If we get those, we will turn those over immediately. And that's all we can be expected to do. If the court wishes to go through the others, it's listed as 13, but there's actually 12 requests. I'm happy to do that. If the court's satisfied with.
I have a question. It was my question last time when they testified. It wasn't clear to me who did what each witness did regarding testing, preparation, things that are normal cross-examination. Is that clarified any better? They said we. They talked about we did this, we did that.
Well, I would disagree with that. Dr. Rentschler talked about what he did, which was more on the biological side.
There was a difference between the
and
two.
Dr. Wolf talked about what he did on the mechanical side. They did discuss what their individual or their specific capacity was and their expertise. We have not received any additional report to that effect. Everything that is in the report is exactly what the Commonwealth received at the same time that the defense received it. And it's exactly what they testified to both in the voir dire and in the trial. There's no clarification that we haven't asked for clarification. If there is clarification in any new analyses, that will be turned over immediately as well.
Is there anything that they're going to say they cannot provide because of the federal investigation?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know. I haven't asked them if there's communications that Mr. Brennan is asking for that they can't provide. I haven't asked them that because I've not deigned to.
Can we consult counsel just for a moment?
Sure.
Right. Ms. Little I was getting to the point, but she emphasized, and I will emphasize it here, the one thing that the U.S. government has said to both the Commonwealth and to us is in furtherance of their testimony, in furtherance of their engagement, they still are not allowed to detail confidential communications that they had with the U.S. government and the Department of Justice.
But can they testify as to what they did?
Yes. Yes, that is on. That's
Can
on the
they
table.
testify under what direction they did these things?
Well, they can certainly testify to what they did. Absolutely, that is on the table. Every bit of testing, every bit of analysis.
But why they did it?
What their communications were, what their directives were, that is confidential. And
Can I see Councilor Tagbar, please?
I'm going to take advantage of this to switch over to WCVB, which is, I think, a little bit better feed. What the hell? I try to keep the screens going. One of them gets buggy. It actually happened in the middle. One of the computers started getting buggy, so I switched over, but I don't think anybody was even able to notice it. Sorry, I would have brought the other guys in, but I thought this was going to be a quick sidebar. No such thing, right? So we'll see if anybody's around. Hey guys, you sitting at your desk?
Yep.
No real surprises here so far, right? Or
No.
what do you think is going to go on with this ARCA situation here?
I don't know how they're even going to do any additional, like, what are they going to do in the next 2 days?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. And they're never going to get those communications between the feds and them. So I don't know.
It's very hard to just accept the answers that they're giving when you don't really know what the question was, you know?
Right. Right. And this goes to the heart of the issue of bias. Without knowing exactly what the feds asked ARCA to do, we don't know if what they assigned him was basically a loaded question, and it seems to me that it was, but I don't think you're ever, even if you could have those messages, you're never going to prove it. But you need the right to try to get those messages. So Meredith is there. Is Turtle Boy in the back room? Is he on his way?
No idea.
I guess Karen has taken advantage of her right to be at sidebar.
Well, I mean, she thinks she's one of the attorneys, so it makes sense to me.
So does Victoria George.
Oh my God. I mean, I think the whole ARCA thing is like, I mean, what are they going to ask them? Like, they have to be able to explain like why they came up with this like hypothesis. Was it a directive, or are they just so incompetent that they ignored half of the damage on the vehicle? It just, the better answer would be if they could tell them that they had a directive for their own business sake, that they were directed in a certain way. But to just be like, oh, yeah, we just decided to shoot the car with a cannon, a potato cannon, because it was cool. That's what we did with the tax dollars.
Yeah, and it seems like if you're ARCA, we understand that experts usually are going to try to slant their testimony towards the side that they're trying to help, that's employing them. But if you get up there, if the state has this truly compelling evidence, and we already know that it does, and we don't even know the full extent of what it has, you just ruin your own reputation as an accident reconstructionist by getting up there and arguing against this this mountain of evidence. Don't you at some point do damage to your reputation? I don't know.
Well, no, because I mean, you're always, as an insurance company, you're always going to want a company that says, no, that's not how it happened, right?
Right.
Like,
right. Someone that's willing to say anything to help the client. Yep.
Oh, baby.
One of my computers has the screen of death. I haven't seen that for years. I've been trying to work on it on the side here all morning to no avail. It's my old desktop. Well, sorry, guys. I'm out of questions.
I think that the molds, the dog's mold thing, like that was kind of shocking to me, that she was like, you're going against an uphill battle. Like they're literally in that documentary saying, if we only had the dog, then we could match that. And now suddenly I just think, I don't understand like Judge Bev's argument or Judge Cannoni's argument. Like, why wouldn't that be allowed in?
All right. So, Mr. Jackson, you're saying that the ARCA witnesses did not do anything, did not read anything, did not consult anything, did not try any additional experiments or come to any findings other than everything that's in that report.
That is correct. That's what we've been told. We have no reason to believe otherwise. Everything that they did, everything they were asked to do, and all the data that they were provided upon which to base their opinions and conclusions is provided in the report, and was all subject to cross-examination, both at the voir dire and at trial.
All right. And then subsequent to that, information was provided by Mr. Yannetti. And you have that all documented, whatever information the ACRA authorities now are working on is information provided by Mr. Yannetti or his file?
So there's two issues. I want to make sure I don't conflate these. Mr. Brennan mentioned a subpoena that Mr. Yannetti had received at his office.
Mr. Yannetti had brought it up in open court.
Correct. That subpoena was honored, as we had to, obviously, as Mr. Yannetti had to honor it. For every single NOD that we got from the Commonwealth, that was then submitted to the federal authorities.
When was that done?
It was done periodically since the subpoena came into his desk.
When did it start?
I don't remember the dates. September 1st, 2022.
Thank you.
I didn't remember the specific date, but it was very early on. So the Department of Justice, or the U.S. Attorney's Office, was receiving information pursuant to that subpoena in an ongoing basis. But I want to make clear, that's not information that was then going to ARCA. The U.S. Attorney's Office decided what information, and the FBI decided what information to supply to ARCA to answer their questions.
Do you know what information was provided?
Yes, it's in the report. There were 14 categories of items that were provided to ARCA, and they said that's all that we were provided.
All right, so then it's accurate to say items that are in the notices of discovery that ARCA does not list were not provided to them?
Correct. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, they were provided a very narrow, it was a narrow scope of work, if you will, that did not include the myriad things that we were getting in NODs.
All right, then you
September
started
2022.
providing them information to fill in those gaps, right?
Once we provide information from Dr. Welcher, for instance, we knew that we wanted at least to explore the idea of rebutting some of that information, from a biomechanic standpoint, and we wanted them to have basically a mirror image of what Dr. Welcher was providing.
All right, so when
that's
did you
what
do?
we provided to them.
When did you do that?
I want to say March 26th or 27th. I think it's in the motion. Just take a quick look.
Okay.
Additional discovery for the experts for their review on March 26, 2025. Okay. That same day, the defense was provided all the additional materials to ARCA, including Dr. Welcher's reports and all of his findings, including the 140-page PowerPoint, et cetera. We wanted them to have everything that Dr. Welcher had, as well as Dr. Welcher's reports and findings.
All right, and you say that you will have that, you expect in the next 3 days or so.
Oh, I didn't say 3 days. I said I think we can count it in days, not weeks. So I would expect if there is something that we're going to receive, it's probably in the next week or 10 days, I would guess.
All right.
We are acting as efficiently as we possibly can, but we can only do so much, given the fact that we were only provided access to hire ARCA on March 26th.
All right, Mr. Brennan, I'll hear you.
This is the very issue I've been concerned about since the beginning of this case. And I've made every effort to alert the court that I had a concern, in fact, that I anticipated this very thing would happen. When I began this case, beginning of October, end of September, my first analysis was of the past history of this case and dropping experts and information during trial. My attempt was never to preclude ARC from testifying, never. But it was to preclude the defense from trying this case by ambush. And it was my primary concern. And that is why I filed motions from the beginning of this case. Your Honor must remember, I was filing notices of intention, notices anticipating, things that are not routine because I knew this very thing would happen. We had ARCA witnesses where I still do not believe we have had full disclosure. Regardless of whose fault it is, I still do not believe we have full disclosure. not just for the basis of opinion, but regarding communications between the defense and ARCA. That's why I filed this motion for discovery. And when the defense responds it's not in their possession of control, that's why these ARCA witnesses who've made representations to this court about not knowing the defense and the limited interaction with the defense, they need to be held accountable. That information should come directly from the ARCA witnesses if the defense can't or won't produce it. I believe there will be information that ARCA has if you order them to bring in all of their communications, email, phone call records, billing, and text messages. And if it exists, I would like to see it. I think I'm entitled. The ARCA witnesses provided a report that blurs the roles of the parties. I can live with that. I can accept that. The ARCA witnesses provide a report that does not have a lot of information about their study and notes. I can accept that because I have prepared for it. But what I haven't prepared for is for the defense to wait until the last minute, then move for a tour request, which they know will take time, then provide information to ARCA on the eve of opening statements, and then expect to come in with new opinions and information reports after we've already given an opening statement. It's not only trial by ambush. It not only takes away the Commonwealth's ability and right to prepare, it creates a disadvantage that information and argument is already made to the jury without complete information that they should have had. They could have retained any expert they wanted. They didn't have to wait for ARCA witnesses. They've had 3 years. They could have retained any accident reconstructionist they wanted, but they waited. They moved with a TUI letter on February 7, 2025. Anybody with experience, including the defense, knows it takes time. If they really wanted the ARCA witnesses, they could have moved in November. We gave Judd Welch's CV in November. We met our discovery deadlines, and they were hard. There was more we would have done or wanted to do, but we couldn't because we honored our obligations to the court and the discovery orders. We provided the discovery pursuant to the orders so that they would be held to the same standard. And now we hear they waited until February 7th, 2025 for a tour request. And now they're giving new information to ARCA to come back and potentially give new opinions that we have no ability for our experts to evaluate. We have no ability for our experts to then go through and conduct more testing. This is the core of preparing for the case. They had that obligation. And so now to allow them to do this, it's not an aberration. This is a continued pattern from the last trial. They have their ARCA witnesses, they have their report. That is all pursuant to the discovery deadlines. To now let them change the rules and come in tomorrow, the next day, or 10 days from now and have new opinions after we've already told the jury our theory and our science and not have a chance to rebut it or consider it. I'll have no time during trial to sit down with the experts and assign them to review new information, new reports. I'll have no time to go back and reconsider the order of witnesses or the information we need or witnesses that we've decided we don't need in this case and scheduling. If it wasn't so obvious this was going to happen, I wouldn't be so upset about it. At some point, the defense has to be held to the same standard of discovery obligation. This isn't late notice. This isn't parachuting in. This is an effort they decided to make and wait until February 7, 2025. Your Honor, I ask you to allow ARCA to testify, allow them to testify to their report, be confined to the report that has met discovery deadlines, and to produce the request that the court ordered regarding discovery of the information that we want. That's what I asked this court to do.
Your Honor, what appears to be feigned indignation is just not consistent with the facts. We didn't receive Judd Welcher's report until basically February 2025. We received a report, I think it was January 31st, 2025, and we read it for the first time the next day on February 1st. Nobody's been dragging their feet. There is no ambush. This feigned indignation is just not consistent with the facts, Your Honor. The court hadn't ruled that we could even use ARCA until just a few weeks ago. we have been moving expeditiously to try to rebut a witness that the Commonwealth disclosed in February of 2025. By mid-March, we asked for a TUI request. We asked for a TUI permission, or asked permission to engage them through a TUI request. That does take time. We did it expeditiously. We weren't waiting for some advantage. As soon as we got the request approved, we immediately, that day, engaged them, and immediately that same day provided the Commonwealth notice that we had engaged them, and we intend to use them to, at the very least, to address Judd Welcher's testimony or his reports, the last iteration of which we got on March 24th. So if you want to talk about dates and chronology, what's good for the goose should be equally good for the gander. Mr. Brennan has been consistently providing us with new discovery after his certificate of compliance has been well done, the ink is well dry. We have a right, we have an obligation to address and to meet his new discovery. For instance, Judd Welcher's opinions and conclusions, with rebuttal opinions and conclusions, if we can. And I want to make sure that we're not conflating two separate issues. One is the information that ARCA had outside of any of our control. Nobody in this courtroom could have reasonably controlled what information they had.
But you did say that's all listed in the report and there's nothing more.
I was just about to say, the communications that they had with U.S. Attorney's Office, I don't have any access to that. That's confidential. But I do know what they provided to them for their analysis. That is all listed in the report. And both sides have had that from the day we received the reports, the federal disclosures. Both sides have had those. So nobody was in any disadvantage in the first trial, and certainly nobody is at a disadvantage in this trial. We're simply trying to meet our obligations as we could within the confines of the rules that were set up in no small part by the federal government. And now those strictures have largely been lifted. And we're moving forward as expeditiously as we possibly can.
Rather than addressing their obligations, it's always an attempt to assign blame. The government or the Commonwealth gave us late disclosures. The changes in Judd Welcher's PowerPoint were by exclusion. Attorney Alisi had concerns about certain things in the report, so we took things out of the report. There's a difference.
So you first provided it in November, then you're saying?
No, we provided, pardon me. We provided his CV in November, and then we provided on our discovery deadlines, January 31st, 2025. And then on February 5th, we provided all of the detailed background notes, references. And so we met our discovery deadlines. The changes to Mr. Welcher's report have been the complaints, understandably, about what they believed was hearsay or inadmissible. So we removed pieces. There was no new testing. There was no new reports with information changing any of the things.
According to Mr. Alesi, who is much more facile with the facts of what's in Judd Welcher's report, that's not quite true. There were additions made to the latest iteration of his report. And Mr. Brennan just admitted that February 5th was the first time that we received all of the information from Judd Welcher. The next month, within a few weeks of that, that's when we received permission to hire ARCA. That's when we received permission to engage ARCA. That's when we provided the individuals at ARCA with everything that we had been provided just the month earlier. So there's no ambush. There's no attempt at taking an advantage vis-a-vis time. It just doesn't, the arguments just don't play, not with the facts and the chronology of what we've been doing and we're continuing to do.
All right. Thank you. think is the only thing left the motion to sequester Aiden Kearney to remove him from the sequestration order. Is that the only thing that's now left outstanding?
No, Your Honor. There's also a motion in limine that was outstanding. It's the Commonwealth's motion in limine to prohibit reference to any pending internal affairs investigations.
Yes. Where do we stand with that? I thought that you were going to.
We've had a chance to review the file. If there's any statements that are relevant, we think the defense is entitled to use those statements for impeachment or cross-examination. As far as the rulings, the administrative body's rulings, that should not be permissible. It's an opinion of a third party, and then it will open the door to the explanation that those sustained findings are limited to certain conduct, but don't include other types of conduct, which we would need to rebut. A third party's opinions are not admissible to impeach a witness.
The defense vehemently disagrees with that assertion. That's not the state of the law. We did provide notice to the Commonwealth of what we intended to admit at trial. The Commonwealth was conversely ordered to provide notice to the defense of what they were specifically asking to keep out. That was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago. I emailed Mr. Brennan the next day after it was due. They did not respond. I was told this morning they're seeking to exclude everything. I would like to be heard on that, Your Honor.
All right. So I don't have a copy of what it is you intend to introduce, right?
No, we provided notice to the Commonwealth, but
So I need that. Do you have it?
I can articulate it to the court. We want to admit the sustained findings that have been made against 4 separate officers in this case.
You know what? I do need that in writing. I need this in writing. I need a Commonwealth's response.
We needed to have a ruling on this in advance of.
Excuse me?
We need to have a ruling on this in advance of Monday.
Right.
I can try to get that to you today.
All right. Get it to me today. I'll decide it tomorrow.
Okay. Are we allowed to make an oral argument as to this issue? It has been briefed already by the Commonwealth.
Okay. You know, what I need is, I wasn't expecting this here today. So what I need is the paper number. I think it's the Commonwealth's motion to exclude, but the last I had it as it wasn't under advisement. You were going to figure out what the objection was and what you wanted to put in. All right, so we need to take a recess anyway so that you can look at the video to see whether there's an objection to the opening. So why don't we take a 15-minute recess? And Ms. Little, if you can provide just the paper number and what the Commonwealth's response was.
It's paper number 588.
All right. So Jim, I need that.
All rise for the court, please.
Hank has had it. He's had it with these shysters.
Yeah, it's annoying. Like I don't blame him. The fact that Jackson comes back like this feigned indignation, like he didn't sound indignant to me. It's annoying after a while. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how they roll. I don't even understand, like, what the hell, how, I mean, it plays out, like, to the public. Like, the public doesn't even pay attention. I don't think the lawyers care, like, people that are covering this online. But it's just such a scam. Like, everything that Karen Reed's defense is, it's a scam. It just shows the weakness in our justice system.
They are the perpetrators of everything that they've tried to accuse the Commonwealth of doing.
Yeah. And so I guess like the next motion is going to be Turtle Boy. And so who's going to be arguing that? It's going to be Turtle Boy's attorney arguing this? Or like, why does that even matter to Karen Reed's team?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have Whiskey Tim come in.
So it sounds to me like the ARCA guys were given by the defense the reports put out by Aperture, the accident reconstruction company hired by the prosecution. And so now they're trying to rebut those reports so that they're truly fully working for the defense now. But we don't know that. And what Hank is complaining about is we don't know what they're going to say. We don't know what, are they going to run new tests to try to rebut Aperture's reports? Am I missing that, Kate? Is that what the issue is? Part of the issue here?
Yeah, I have no idea what they're testing, what they're going to come back with. Like, you know, if they throw it in the middle of, you know, opening, you know, or right after opening statements or whatever, like, how is he going to have time to go back to his experts and be like, wait, because, you know, they can say anything, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And they did that the first time too. Like
Yeah.
they opined on things that weren't in their report. And, you know, so it was an ambush the first time, and that's what he's trying to avoid. They can't just start saying things like, oh, well, if his arm was out, this could have happened. He would have spun around and this and that. Like, that wasn't what they tested. That is not part of their report. They shouldn't be making judgments on it because it wasn't part of what was provided.
So do you think the state sent them after the trial the tech stream data, the Toyota tech stream data, which they didn't have before? Or do you think the defense sent them that?
Well, the state hasn't given them anything.
Well, in Brennan's motion back in November or December was he wanted to know what materials they were sent by the state too. So
Yeah, nothing.
But why would he put that in the motion? Because he would know that they sent nothing.
Well, I mean, that's what Lally said. Like during, you know, for the first trial, they didn't receive any information from the state. None.
No, but that included post-trial. So if you did the state after the trial, send them over the tech stream data, for instance.
I mean, they didn't engage them, so I don't know why they would.
Well, it would be smart if they did, because then you get them on the stand, and then this time you say, did you look at the tech stream data? And they say no, then it looks bad. It looks like they weren't after the truth in front of the jury, right?
I don't know if that's legal. Can you just? I don't know that you can just. I mean, they're the defense's experts. Can the Commonwealth then go and just send them stuff? And I don't think they can have any discussions with them. I think at some points Hank had clarified, right, that he hadn't had any discussions, that it wasn't permissible to. They just hadn't. So right. I don't think there's been any conversation or engagement.
Right.
It's so strange because like Dr. Wolf is an expert in tech stream data. So, I mean, Hank should be taking his article out and citing from his article as he questions him, being like, so you don't think it's important, but you wrote here that this is how you can determine what happened in an accident, but you never looked at it in this case. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's so obnoxious that anyone believes, like, it's just such a ruse.
Well, so I guess the way you'd bring it out now is when you put them on the stand and they are now hired as of March by the defense, and you'd say, did the defense send you the tech stream data? And then you say, why not? You know?
They're just going to say no. I mean, it's really bizarre. I hope I should look at Dr. Wolf's article to see what exactly he wrote.
Right. I mean, because that would discredit both the defense and the witnesses here if they were not sent the all-important vehicle data, something that they're an expert in.
I mean, none of their witnesses had all the information in the first trial, and it didn't seem to matter to the cult.
No, but the jury definitely was aware of it. The jury was aware of it. Yeah. The jury, one of those juries, I don't know if it was Ronnie, was saying it meant, you know, they kind of dismissed ARCA because ARCA didn't look at that tech stream data. At least Ronnie did.
Well, yeah, I think it still holds the same weight. I think what's really important here is Welcher's testimony, right? Because if he has a really, and it sounds like he does, so we'll have to see, but have like a really well put together, thoughtful, conclusive report that includes all of the information. If ARCA then comes up behind him and says, well, we didn't use that stuff because, you know, it's not necessary. If Welcher has already shown how it is necessary, then that kind of kills them.
Right. All right. So I guess we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Turtle Boy now, right? Is that the next thing?
Yeah, I guarantee they're probably just gonna let his bitch ass in. Sorry, I'm so uncouth compared to you guys. That wasn't a real apology, but
I mean, I really liked how Hank was saying like they had all this time, they could hire experts and give them all the information, but they literally tried not to give an expert all the information. That's the only reason I would have kept ARCA. I mean, it's just such a scam. And I wish Hank was like, yeah, and they raised $800,000, so money's obviously not an issue. I mean, come on. I want to know. I want the jury to hear about her scam, her money laundering scam.
to be fair, it's over 800,000 on the GoFundMe or whatever the fundraiser is, the pay to go. Like the actual amount is probably in excess of $1 million. We'll never know for sure unless there's like a subpoena or audit or something done on the Venmos and everything. But my conservative guess would be that she's probably raised in excess of $1 million by now.
And do you think these documentaries are paying her?
No, they don't.
No, it's not.
No? Well,
yeah, documentaries don't pay. It's not ethical, because that would shape participation, right? So, like, no, probably. The only thing she got paid in with the documentary is like the weird ego bath that she likes so much. Well, that's what she thought she was going to get. I guess she didn't really get it after all, did she? But yeah, like I don't think that the media stuff is really generating any money for her, other than it's suckers in new idiots.
They do get around it a little bit, and they pay you a location fee. So they shot twice with me, and both times they paid a location fee. And I had asked them when they first contacted me, you know, why don't we just meet at a coffee place somewhere? But they're like, but the only way we can pay you is if we do this at your location, at your house. So, but most of those locations with Karen, there were some done from her house, right? But most of them were from the hotel, it looked like.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think she could get paid for that. It's not like it's that much money when you're spending the kind of meals that she was anyway. So I don't think the documentary, even if they were paying him for being in the hotel every day like that, it adds up because they were with him for a couple months, but doesn't add up the way Alan Jackson's bar tab does. Karen's bar tab.
I mean, why didn't she just host everyone at her house? It doesn't even make sense for them to be there. She could have hosted everyone at her house. They had a war room there. They had basement. She didn't have to pay, but she loves ripping off poor people. So she had her war room in Boston.
Jeff Williams says the lawyers are getting paid, but they say they're not.
Yeah, right. William Reed said that he has not too many dimes left, and he's spending all his last dimes on this lawyer. So like, nothing they say is inconsistent. This is the most fraudulent thing I've ever seen.
I mean, if he's really that hard up, he could sell the $90,000 car, maybe get something a little bit more practical. That's a place to start.
I mean, I bet that the lawyers already have stuff lined up after this, like to do interviews, you know, all kinds of money-making schemes from this case that we'll see after this is over. I feel like Alan Jackson wants Karen Reed to go to jail. I think he banged her a few times, and he's trying to get away.
Can you imagine?
Because he doesn't want to end up on the ground underneath the car. I mean, come on.
Sorry, guys. My brain has reached its limitations.
We're just shooting with shit anyway. I think that like a lot of her like supporters and stuff like low key probably are secretly like rooting her for her to go to jail, just because like the one consistent thing that I've heard across the board, even from people that were like in her inner circle supporting her and all that stuff, is that she is just insufferable. Like she's mean and nasty and demanding and controlling. So I bet low key everybody like wouldn't be that upset if she ended up in prison.
Well, plus you get to keep the grift going if she's in prison.
That's true.
That's the best way to keep it going forever, or for a number of years, anyways. Hank was very animated, more so than I think he normally is. He says, I knew this very thing would happen. Still not have full disclosure. ARCA needs to be held accountable. I'm entitled. Could have retained an accident reconstructionist. So he was pretty strong in his language. Just warming up, I guess.
I don't blame him. Like I said, it's annoying. It's like if you tell your kid to wear, knee pads and elbow pads on their skateboard a million times, and one day they come home with, their freaking elbow all scraped up, and you're like, what the hell? I told you 5 times that this was going to happen, and now it's happened. Like, I feel like that's where Hank's at, too. Like, I knew this was going to happen. And it also must be frustrating to him because, Judge Cannone is soft on them, and he keeps trying to alert the court and being like, hey, something really bad is going on here. Like, they're not being honest. They're trying to ambush us. And she's like, I have concerns. Just don't do it again. Like, it's got to be annoying after a while.
Yeah. Well, I am hungry. Hope you guys are buying me lunch.
I actually spent all my money buying Karen Reed's lawyer's lunch. Sorry. It was really important to me. Yeah. Have you ever tried to feed Alan Jackson McDonald's?
I think it might kill him.
Right?
When she said that, I just pictured her sitting on his lap trying to put French fries in his mouth.
Right. That was another thing she said that had me like stewing on it for a while. Like you try feeding Alan Jackson McDonald. Like, I'm not gonna try to feed him at all. I've never had an attorney that I'm responsible. Like, he's a grown ass man. He could feed himself. What are you even talking about?
So what about the fact that David Unetti's been put on the bench for the opening statement. Alan Jackson is doing the opening statement, and presumably he's doing the closing too. Any thoughts on that?
Karen likes his style better. She wants an attack dog. I think.
Is that up to Karen? I mean, I guess ultimately everything is, but I wonder if she was the one that made the decision on that.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
You got a little mic problem, I think. Just check the connection there or something, Matt.
Oh, am I staticky?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I actually think David Unetti did a good job delivering his opening statement last time. As oratory, it was somewhat powerful. I think as a strategic decision, it was a mistake because you tell the jury that your client was framed and they're going to remember that. And then you make no effort during the case to actually show in any way at all that your client was framed. You don't show any manipulation of evidence, any planting of evidence, nothing like that. So you've created an expectation and now you've not met it. So I think it was a strategic mistake. But as far as oratory, I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that Karen knows that Alan Jackson will break the rules more than Unetti will, because Unetti has licenses in Massachusetts, and she wants Alan Jackson to pull out all the stops because he will cross the line. He's potentially could get kicked off the case halfway through if he pulls his shit. I doubt that she just doesn't seem like she has the muscle to do it, but it's potential. And I think that he will try to push the limit the entire time. And that's probably why he's doing the opening statement.
Your mic sounds good now. Aurora said, Matt, your mic, but I think your mic sounds fine to me now.
Oh, yeah, I unplugged it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach to the difference in styles that you could potentially choose in terms of trying to reach the jury. I don't think Lally's style was a problem. I think there were other strategic decisions that were huge problems. But trying to be just the facts, ma'am, I think that's appropriate for a prosecutor, for a county to go before a jury and not look dramatic or like he's trying to dramatize something. These are just the facts. I thought his style was actually fine. It might have been a little tedious for us to watch, but I think it could be effective with the jurors. The problem was the strategy of not making the opening statements were terrible. They did not really offer a clear roadmap as to what the state's position was. That's a mistake. They needed to lay that out much more cleanly. And then the idea that you're not going to really tell the jury what the state's theory of the accident or whatever you want to call it was until 8 weeks into it. That's unbelievable. That's just unbelievable to me. But that's my bartender opinion. I have no problem if people disagree. Go ahead.
I think Lally rambled a lot. I think he never really got into her state of mind. He never made an argument about that. And to prove murder too, even to prove leaving the scene of an accident, he should have had that. I mean, maybe he was going to get to it and he never got to it. But I mean, I think you have to put the pieces together. I mean, Alan Jackson would certainly have done it, would have said, this is what this meant. When she called him this time, she's changing her story here. She's changing her story there. And I think hopefully Brennan does that more because I think that will kind of connect the dots for people because you are trying to prove a state of mind. I think Lally focused too much on whether she did it or whether the entire town, the Canton Illuminati did it, and Lally was stuck there and didn't get further than that. And I think that was kind of the problem.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where you were really begging Lally to clean something up on cross-examination or on redirect or something like that, and it just didn't happen. And you're like, damn it. And you wish there's so many times I wish that he had a butt in that I could just once in a while communicate with him, like, don't forget this. And I'm sure a lot of us felt the same way.
Yeah, I think he never reiterated either. You'll see it, David Unetti does a good job. Alan Jackson, once they are making their point, they will hammer the person 3 different ways, that same point, so that it's very clear what this whole line of questioning was about. Right. Lally would just get to it and then move on. And it's all right, you need to hammer it home that, they found the pieces before the car was really off camera in the Sally Port.
The way it was delivered, that type of information had no different tone or no more emphasis than what type of beer some random person drank. It was all flat. It was all the same. So it was very difficult for the jury over 10 weeks to know. There are little tricks like that a good lawyer will do that will be a way of signaling the jury, remember this. This is important. Remember this. So I agree.
I mean, we've only seen Hank go after Marie Russell, and he did an excellent job with her. So I just can't wait till he gets... I mean, Nathan Reed, Turtle Boy, the dad. If he really does call those people, I think it's going to be very entertaining.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely entertainment levels, but most of what we want just things to be clear and efficient, and part of that was there was blame to go around for that. I don't think the court, whether it was Judge Canoni or whatever, they didn't have a smooth process for entering evidence and exhibits and marking them, and you had these constant delays while they tagged and numbered those things for long periods of time where the jury had to sit there and watch that. There has to be a more efficient way to do that. I had a question for you guys, and unfortunately, my mind today, I took some medication this morning, and things they come into my head, and then 6 seconds later, it slipped out. I'm like, I know there was something there. And I was like, Maui says that something is up with Unetti. He left, and they are requesting Victoria George to hold the license. All right. I mean, that could be. Thank you, Maui. I don't know enough in how so we know that the other lawyers are out of state, so they're working pro hoc VJ. So I guess Victoria George now has to be on the team if Unetti's not there. He could have a personal crisis, could have a kid that's sick at school or something like that. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't, withdraw from the case. So
Right. He could have to appear on some other case in some other courtroom for a moment here. Could be a lot of things.
If he did withdraw from the case, though, that would be epic. I mean, that would be so that they could go free range because they're just going to be damaging Victoria George's license.
Yeah.
And she's such a sucker. So, let her have it.
Can the opposing lawyer object during opening statements? Yes. Absolutely. You're not allowed to be argumentative. You're not allowed to overly appeal to the emotion of the jurors. There are definite, and those are subtle things sometimes too. So those are definitely rules that each side has to abide by. Hoping for justice says this could be dealing with Turtle Boy's issue. Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
what could be dealing with what issue?
Why this break is taking so long.
Oh, I mean, they took a recess to go over the clips and stuff. So I would assume
So that could take time, right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been that long. I think it's been, she said 15-minute recess. What's it been? 20 minutes maybe? So it hasn't been too long.
I feel like there's so many things that Alan Jackson says that are then repeated as if someone else said it. So someone in the chat just said, Trooper Paul said that he flew 30 feet from the fire hydrant. That was a cross-examination thing that Alan Jackson said. The debris field was 30 feet, but his shoe was only 9 feet from his body. So,
right. Trooper Paul's estimate was 15 feet, roughly 15 feet from the collision location to where 30 feet thing came in because they found an outlier piece of tail light near the fire hydrant, which was 30 feet away.
Right. But it was a blizzard and there was plows and it was after the plowing and all that. So
right.
You could find it down the street. It doesn't mean that he flew from all the way down the street.
Right.
Yep. AJ enters the pirouette. He also said pin it on the girl. And a lot of people say, oh, Proctor's messages said pin it on the girl. That was Alan Jackson that said that. And this is why he's so clever.
Whew. Finally.
Court is back in session. You may be seated.
All right. So the first thing I viewed the clip. Is this only 15 seconds? Did I see everything you intend to use?
I expect that's only 15 seconds.
Okay. Was there any objection to what you saw?
No objection.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say that's only the audio. There's a visual that goes with it, but because it comes from a broadcast, we have to copy it differently.
Okay.
That's the audio, but there will be the visual with it that was aired.
Okay. I was able to see the video.
Super.
Okay. All right. Were you as well, Ms. Little?
Yes, we were able to see the video and we have no objection. And I did also provide, there's only a single photograph we intend to display. It will be an admitted exhibit. I provided a copy to counsel. I will also send that to the court as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll hear you on this motion. Ms. Little, I'll hear your response to the Commonwealth's motion.
So during the break, we had an opportunity to discuss this issue with the Commonwealth.
Okay.
I believe we are in agreement on most of the issues.
Okay.
They have agreed that we are allowed to bring in the sustained findings as they relate to Trooper Proctor, Trooper Buchnick, Detective Lieutenant Tully.
Okay.
The only issue that we need to work out, Your Honor, is with regard to Kevin Albert. And so we will continue to discuss that. I'm not as concerned in terms of timing with that particular issue.
Okay.
If the court will give us, another day or two to discuss with the Commonwealth, if there's a remaining issue, we can address that promptly with the court.
Okay. Can we address, is it something you need for your opening?
It's not.
Okay. All right. So yes, we'll address it sometime next Tuesday or Wednesday. Take your time in working it out. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So now is the only thing left the motion that Mr. Bradle's here for?
As far as I know.
Okay. All right. Morning, Mr. Bradle.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Okay. So Jim, you have that. All right, I probably have it here too. I have one, Jim, thanks. All right, I will hear you. Let me just ask, Commonwealth, you're moving to, sorry, you stay right there, Mr. Bradel. Mr. Brennan, you're asking for sequestration on all the witnesses other than the ones that have already been decided, right?
I'm not sure I understand.
So there was already an order on who is exempt from the sequestration order, family members. We discussed, and there was an order on all of this.
Yes.
Are you asking that Aidan Kearney be sequestered?
I am. He's a named witness.
Okay. Does the Commonwealth intend to call him in your case in chief?
It depends on the development of the case. There are two issues that are important. The one in case in chief is whether or not there's any development of third-party culprit. If there is, Mr. Kearney becomes a more important witness, and we'll have to assess that as the case progresses. The other is rebuttal. If the defense calls the defendant to the stand, then it is strong likelihood that we would call Mr. Kearney.
Okay.
Those are two things that I can't anticipate at this time.
Okay. All right. Now I'll hear you, Mr. Bradel.
All right, thank you very much, Your Honor. Judge, we don't have an offer of proof. I'll try to argue in the interest of time, and I think I know where the court's going with this, based on the prosecutor's statements and the context. So with that understanding, Judge, I would just start by saying that, there's really no reason to beat around the bush here, Your Honor. The Commonwealth is not going to call my client, Mr. Kearney, who for the record is in the second row here today.
Can I just ask, if he were to call your client, would he take the fifth?
Yes, Judge, and I just should clarify for that.
Okay.
That is under the government's, the obviously well-established position of Norfolk County law enforcement. What we contend is a twisted interpretation of the witness intimidation statute, that seeking to contact witnesses, seeking to question people is witness intimidation.
Okay, so just focus back on.
So the answer is yes. I'm sorry. The answer is yes, Judge.
Okay. So let me hear from you on that, Mr. Brennan.
Sure. Your Honor, under the government's interpretation of this statute, Your Honor, the government is seeking to first.
No, I'm sorry. What I said was, I'll hear you, Mr. Brennan. And you
I'm sorry.
But that's okay. I don't want to hear about the witness intimidation statute, other than if I don't sequester your client, I would be inclined to do just like I did before. The witnesses who are the subject of the indictments, Mr. Kearney will have to be outside the courtroom when they testify.
We anticipated that, Your Honor, and I won't say that we would agree to that, but I understand the court's position there, and I can see that would be a resolution the court might land on.
Okay. Now I'm going to let Mr. Brennan speak, and then I'll hear you again, Mr. Bradel.
Thank you.
Your Honor, you have questions?
Yes. What if he takes the fifth?
If he asserts his Fifth Amendment privilege, I think there is no realistic likelihood that we would call him. There's obviously procedures the Commonwealth could follow, but I have no belief that will happen. So I expect if he actually asserts his Fifth Amendment privilege, I would no longer have a good faith basis to say that there would be a need for sequestration. I would ask the court to impose the prior limitations with named victims and also minor witnesses.
Okay.
But I would, as a predicate, he would need to assert the fifth.
Do you need that to be done formally, or do you want it to be done formally?
I do.
Mr. Bradel, do you want to do that now?
Judge, I'm happy to assert that on his behalf.
We'd reject that invitation. If he wants to assert the Fifth Amendment privilege, he can assert it.
Okay. Do you want to call him now and do that now, Mr. Bradel, or not? Do you want to talk with your client? And
7 minutes.
sure. Why don't you know what? I'll give you more than a minute, Mr. Bradel. Can the staff work through lunch for a little bit?
Yes.
Everybody stay. All right. Mr. Bradel, why don't I give you 10 minutes to talk to him? We'll see you back here in 10 minutes.
All rise for the court, please.
badass. I love this for him. He's
You know,
like, yeah.
forcing him to take the stand, forcing us to be late for lunch. I am starved. But yeah, that'd be great if they do actually force him to take the stand. That'd be awesome to see. It doesn't.
They're not
really
gonna make it like
mean
take the
anything, but-
stand, but his bitch ass is gonna have to get up and plead the fifth in front of everybody. And again, it is a legal principle that when you take the fifth in a criminal case, you can't draw an adverse conclusion, right? Or inference. You can in civil court, and you sure as hell can in the public. If that man, if Aiden Carney gets up and pleads the fifth, it's because he knows that he's been breaking the law with Karen Reed. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's it. That is it. You know, as close to an admission in public that you're going to get.
So along those lines, couldn't the judge draw that same conclusion just in terms of sequestration?
Well, no, because the sequestration is just for the testimony. It's not punitive.
But at this point, he's going to be asked to have only the same restrictions as last time, where he's only restricted from being one of the witnesses that he is specifically charged with witness intimidation against. So he can be here for all the other ones. But if his pleading the fifth, could that be somehow weighed as, I don't know, as adding to the weight that he is going to intimidate witnesses, which could include witnesses that have not been named yet. And that's why he should be kept out of court.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't.
I mean, I think it's an absolute farce. I think the judge does a good job, and I've talked to another judge in this state, and everybody agrees it's a farce. She has it within her power to get this guy removed from the court.
I know.
And it's a farce that she doesn't. I mean, it's how much more can you undermine the state's judicial system than this guy and Karen Reed together have done? And the judge is enabling at this point by allowing him in the courtroom, where he's not even going to try to hide the fact that he's trying to identify jurors, possibly trying to communicate with them. I mean, it's just,
I mean, the judge on his other case is totally in favor of him, it seems like. So she's not even as bad. It's weird. It's a weird reading of the law.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nobody wants to be that guy, I think, that, crosses the line over on the First Amendment. Unless you are Judge Noonan from Leominster District Court. That guy loves to shit all over the First Amendment. That's the only judge I've ever seen that genuinely enjoys it, though.
I mean, what if Turtle Boy was against Karen and was leading a mob of hundreds against a witness? I mean, I'm sorry, a defendant. Wouldn't her Sixth Amendment rights supersede his First Amendment rights in that situation?
I mean, I think that it would be different because if it was something adverse to Karen Reed, her defense would be making the arguments against it, and the Commonwealth would just consent. The Commonwealth's not going to argue it. I don't think it's sort of like the buffer zone issue, right? Like you have the Puppy Doe case, 500-foot buffer zone requested by the defense. It's not a controversial issue because the Commonwealth agrees to it. They do it, no big deal, right? They're and the protesters for the Puppy Doe case in there to kind of sing their praises. They didn't want to influence the trial, so they were fine with being moved back. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, but Brado would be arguing it, even though the Commonwealth wouldn't be arguing. If Turtle Boy was leading a mob against Karen,
That's
Brado
true.
would be arguing that he has a right to be in there. And so I just think it's a good intellectual exercise to say, what if this was a different kind of way? The Sixth Amendment is a right to a fair trial, and this guy is clearly interfering with the right to a fair trial, which also applies to the prosecution too. So I think it's a travesty. This guy should not be allowed in there. I don't know. I hope that somebody has put together, maybe they haven't had time, but a list of all the clips of his statements threatening jurors, threatening to identify them. All of that should have been sent to the judge. I hope that it has, but I don't take anything for granted.
I think she's seen all of it. I would assume that she has. I mean, look at, has she ever been on a case where she has been dragged through the mud like this case? Like, it's unbelievable. Like, nobody's safe. Everybody's part of it. Everyone's corrupt. Everyone's conspiring. Everyone's against poor little Karen Reed. It's like so absurd.
So if Turtle Boy has to take the fifth, he can do it from his seat, or does he have to come up to a table? Does he have to go up to the stand, Kate?
I think she's out. I think he has to come up, though. I think that's what Hank Brennan is requiring.
Right. That's what he's asking for. So does he have to go and get on the witness stand, or does he just have to go and stand at the table with Bradle and say, you know?
I hope they get a good video of this, because it's going to be... This is going to be the key to the documentary that comes out on Netflix.
Right.
This is the story. It's how a murderer got like all these like soft people to treat her like a celebrity through the use of the social media scumbag and harass every single witness in the case. And you know, that's what the real story is here.
Matt, did you get contacted by ABC Nightline?
Yeah.
No, okay.
I was like,
I
I'm
hope
not
you don't
gonna be
mind.
there. Yeah, it's fine.
I'm not. I told them I couldn't because of what was going on, and then I gave them John DePetro and I gave them your name, and I know they reached out to John. And I was wondering if they reached out to you.
Yeah, there's no way in hell I'm gonna go there. All those people, those pink people, are gonna be outside the courthouse.
Yeah,
cutting their lines of oxycodone with their EBT cards. Like, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there were other things that they made. I don't think they were certain what they wanted to do. Part of it was they wanted a correspondent outside the courthouse. And yeah, I would have enjoyed doing that, but I told them I just couldn't because of what I got going on. But there were other things too. I think they're working with 2020, so they want to do interviews and stuff like that. So I thought maybe they might want to interview you from Florida. But I haven't had any contact with them since I gave them all the other names. They were like, okay, good. Thanks.
The camera's moving.
That could be just a ceiling fan trying to escape.
That would be just funny if that ceiling fan fell on Karen Reed and killed her. Imagine if that was the end of this trial.
Well, the headline would be her biggest fan.
Come on, I want to see this little maggot plead the fifth. He's going to talk about this for the rest of his life, like it's a win.
I know. I fought for First Amendment rights by getting up there. And even though I committed no crimes, I declared the fifth just to protect the rights of journalists.
I bet they're like, he's probably orchestrating a statement that Turtle Boy can also make. I don't know if that's allowed, but I feel like they're going to try to do something.
I don't think he's allowed to say anything except for that he's pleading the fifth.
Turtle Boy is short. He is the 5-foot felon that nobody wants to deal with.
Turtle Boy makes these comments all the time. How he's now prison hardened. He can survive on the yard.
Except I heard he was crying every day to be kept separate because he was so scared, like literally crying.
Yeah, I don't think he came within 5 feet of another prisoner. He was kept in isolation. He's kept on the hospital ward. Is my understanding.
I heard it's because he couldn't even reach the urinals. They didn't have the short urinals on that side.
Just reading the chat. Come on, Judge, get it going. I got to have some lunch. I am starved.
I know, I'm over this. This is the last thing for the day too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I hope. I hope. If I hear her say we're breaking for lunch, I'm going to be like, no. Is that smoke detector new?
I wonder.
We've hit the jump the shark moment. We're discussing the smoke detector.
Are they going to be in the same small courtroom again?
Yeah. Yeah. Tyler says, we're all upset that someone is exercising their constitutional rights. No, we're not upset about that at all. And we just think it's Karen's right, her Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial, that Turtle Boy should not be allowed in that courtroom. The state's right. The state also has a right to a fair trial. The public has a right through the state. And that's all we want. We're not expecting Turtle Boy to be forced to testify. No. You haven't heard any of us say that. But what he's doing, Turtle Boy is the antithesis of free speech. Turtle Boy tries to silence any dissent, and me and Matt have both experienced that. I mean, I've had Turtle Boy give up my number and try to get all his people to call me in the middle hours of the morning, which they did. Turtle Boy is against you if you disagree with him. Turtle Boy doxed Hank Brennan's wife. Turtle Boy doxed Hank Brennan. It's all about silencing opinion. That's what he's been about since the beginning here. Anybody that disagrees with him needs to be silenced. He's going to go after a juror that disagrees with him. He is not an advocate of free speech. Now, I understand free speech and the First Amendment aren't exactly the same thing. But still, if you value the principle of the First Amendment based on the idea of free speech, but you're going out there trying to get your deranged, mindless mob to use that to silence anybody else who has a difference of opinion, I really don't want to hear that you're somehow some advocate for free speech. And anybody that thinks he is frankly fucked up.
Yeah, it's totally a one-sided thing. It's not, they aren't thinking through anything. Like, obviously you can't just harass witnesses and accuse people of murder without any evidence. And that's the thing, like, all these people calling people names, calling people murderers with zero evidence. And there's a mountain of evidence, and that's their queen. She's the queen of the idiots.
Yeah. And for Bradel to confuse things on the stand there by trying to say all my client was guilty of was going to ask questions. No, you organized a rolling rally where you brought well over 100 people, dozens of cars, and went to every witness's house and the investigators and stood out there with a bullhorn in these quiet neighborhoods, traffic blocked, and shouted at them that they were murderers. That right. There's nothing journalistic about that. It's pure intimidation. And you also have to couple that with the statements that he was making on his show every night, where he said, I'm going to hound you until the ends of the earth, make your life miserable, make your life hell, unless you tell the truth, which is his way of saying, unless you change your testimony. That's witness intimidation. Especially, you have to put it all together. It's not just that he showed up and tried to ask Jen McCabe some questions at a soccer game or a lacrosse game. It's much, much more complicated than that. And to not understand that is to really just not want to understand it.
Right. I mean, like the Julie Nagel one, he's literally saying we can't let her walk around town like this never happened. He's saying she's covering up for murders, and until she tells the truth, everyone should not let her walk around this town. Like,
I know.
That's the clearest form of witness intimidation that could possibly be. Exactly.
You're not testifying the way we want, so we need to destroy you. And that's been going on at every level. The crowd has bought into it. If this isn't as clear cut a case of witness intimidation as you're going to have, the fact that he happens to be a blogger doesn't really change it. So I'm a journalist. Well, whatever. Even if you work for the Boston Herald and you're doing those things, you're engaged in witness intimidation. You're not engaged in journalism.
Yeah, and if I was starting to go back and look at his earlier things, there was like a conversation with Paul O'Keefe where Paul O'Keefe's like, I thought you were an investigative reporter. Why aren't you investigating her? And I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know. He never looked into this case as an investigative reporter. He was always just spewing whatever Karen wanted him to. And that's not a journalist. He was running PR for a murder.
So Joe Krowski has been listening in, and he had a couple of comments. I'm sure he wants me to share these, I would think. So back on the Chloe stuff, it seems to me, he says, that Judge Cannone is going to allow measurements in, but leave it up to the jury to decide based on whether or not Chloe could have been the contributor to those injuries. What she is inclined to exclude is the ultimate opinion by the expert. And then on this question of Turtle Boy, the answer to your question is no. The basis of the fifth would be that he has open charges and may be compelled to incriminate himself on open or future charges, not that he's going to intimidate someone if he searched the fifth. There's no longer the same compelling need to sequester him because there's no concern that he's going to listen to witness testimony and then take the stand and modify the testimony based on what he's been able to observe during the course of the trial. Let me try to dissect that.
This is way longer than 15 minutes.
It always is.
Isn't she hungry?
Maybe she's eating.
Are we just going to get him on the stand just to say, I plead the fifth? That's it.
I mean, it's
I just want to see him walk up there.
Damn.
I know. Because he's so much shorter than everybody else. Like, everyone's going to realize what a little troll he is. Because, like, when he's sitting in the background or doing his labs, you can't tell. But when he walks behind, like, by, like, a traffic cone or something, the traffic cone's taller than him, that's how you know.
You are unmuted.
At work, the dog got their attention.
Session, you may be seated.
Hi, Mr. Brennan, do you agree that Mr. Kearney has a Fifth Amendment right?
I think he has a Fifth Amendment privilege. I don't know that he has a Fifth Amendment privilege to all questions we would ask, but the content that we would go into, I think he clearly would have a Fifth Amendment privilege.
All right, so you're not asking for a Lumen Martin hearing?
I'm not. I think I necessarily would have to delve into issues regarding his open indictments against a number of different victims.
Okay.
And I think there's other information that I can't discuss for other reasons because of court orders.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I would suggest that the court could take judicial notice of the 16 indictments against him.
So the Commonwealth concedes, and I believe there's a valid Fifth Amendment right. So
The SC just allow me to make the representation on behalf of Mr. Carney that he would, in fact, invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege. Commonwealth agrees to it. I ask that you just allow me to make the representation and leave it there.
Oh, sure. Is there any objection for everybody hearing this?
There is. I would like Mr. Kearney to consider his fifth.
I thought you wanted a basis. No, I'm going to see Mr. Kearney here at sidebar with just you, Mr. Bradel.
Thank
And
you.
all recording devices are off.
Thank you.
FTR goes to sealed, Tori and Chrissy.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to hear it. It's going to be done at sidebar, and which is probably the right way to do it. But
That is not the right way to do it. he should not be
it's not our
protected.
It's not our preferred way, but
I mean, the stuff that he puts out about all of the people, untrue stuff, like he should be able to speak for himself. Ugh, the ceiling fan. Come on. I mean, maybe she's gonna make him do it publicly, but maybe she's just giving him the spiel before at sidebar.
Tori,
I would.
Yes.
Oh.
All right, so Mr. Brennan, I've just had a colloquy with Mr. Carney, with his lawyer present, obviously. I find, and the Commonwealth concedes, that he does have a valid Fifth Amendment right. I find that there's a valid basis for him to invoke that Fifth Amendment privilege, and I find that if he were called to testify, he would in fact invoke that Fifth Amendment privilege. So based on that, he will be exempt from the sequestration order, except as to, and I need a list of the named witnesses who are the alleged victims in the current indictments.
I accept those findings. We'll provide the court with a list of the named victims. We also would like to have the court consider the 2 minors in that list.
Oh, yes, I think I did that last time as well.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
All right, so is that it for today?
Judge, if I may, just for the record, maintain the same objection I had at the last trial. Don't need to make any further commentary on it, just in case there's any further action, which I don't anticipate right now.
Okay.
But just for the record, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're all set until Tuesday, I believe. I'll get orders out. Oh, stipulations were just given to me. I have not had a chance to read them. All right, this looks like you all made some progress in a way where the jury will be happy that you've cut down the amount of time that they may be here otherwise. Okay. Anything else today?
The only thing I would ask the court to consider is with regard to the speaker, the reader issue.
Oh, okay.
If the Commonwealth intends to go forward with that, I would ask that that be put in a formal motion so we have something to respond to. I think research on that is in order.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Doesn't have to be lengthy.
And it is something that we've done.
Right. Understood. I would like to see I'm going to have to look at what the law in Massachusetts is concerning that and what the sort of parameters are.
Okay.
I just think because of the potential prejudicial effect on Ms. Reed, I'd like to have something in writing. That's all.
It is in the extrajudicial motion. If there's something separate the court wants brief, we're happy to do it, but it's already in the motion that we provided regarding judicial statements.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you.
All right, for the vote, please.
See you next Tuesday. I volunteer to be the reader of the text messages.
I'm happy to second that.
I
So
would
anybody
just
else?
like to point out one thing. Sorry, but one
go ahead.
thing. This case has already been to trial once. Went all the way through trial. There's been 2 grand juries, a federal and a state. During that time, no witness has ever pled the fifth. Not Jennifer McCabe, not Matt McCabe, not Brian Albert, not Colin Albert, not Brian Higgins, not Michael Proctor, not Brian Tully, not Yuri Buchanek. Nobody has pled the fifth in relation to this case except for Aiden Carney just did. Just want to throw that out there. Only person. There's only 2 people that won't testify on this. Aiden and Karen. Sorry.
Right.
No.
Yeah. In addition to that, I was just going to say that Karen is the only one that hasn't made on the record statements before any jury. All of these other witnesses never pled the fifth. They all testified in front of a federal and a state jury, and this will be the second time in front of a state jury. Karen has never made an official statement besides, I think, the first day, right? Never said anything else after that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
No
think she's ever
affidavit,
said
nothing.
He pled not guilty, right? That's it.
Yeah.
She said she did not want to be arrested in her house slippers. Come on, people.
She had to do her hair. She needed to look good on TV. That's what she cared about.
All right. So anything else, guys? Anything else going on we want to talk about before we all get to go eat?
You know, it's just so interesting. Like I said, it's a no-brainer. The rule doesn't bend for anybody in terms of being around. But if you plead the fifth and you convince the judge you're going to plead the fifth, and obviously, Hank, Brennan, it seemed like, I mean, if it would have been me, I would have had multiple questions, maybe even printed out to show the judge that I would have wanted to ask Aiden Carney that had nothing to do with him pleading the fifth.
Yeah.
That I would have had on the ready to show the judge, listen, there's no pleading the fifth to these. And for that reason, we could call him about these particular questions. So this is the first time I've been a little bit disappointed in Brennan. It looked like he was surprised.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Jen from Breaking the Case with Jen Coffindaffer, Matt from Bondless Millennial, Kate from Mafia Masshole. And just if you're watching from one of those channels, my channel is Yellow Cottage Tales. So we will cover every part of the trial. And so we'll be back next Tuesday. And I'm sure we'll probably do a show somewhere before that. Anybody else want to say anything in parting?
No, thanks, Kevin.
No.
All right,
Thank you, Kevin. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody else. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. And thanks, everybody in chat. Thanks, guys, for being here.